right, welcome back to the party, everybody. I'm your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Everybody hit that like and subscribe. You know I would do it for you. And let's party. Big shout out to the replay gang. Thank you so much for coming back to watch this, even though you missed the live party, guys. That is the best part. So make sure you're here every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and sometimes whenever I feel like it. So hit that subscribe, ring the bell, and you will never miss an Indian Jesus live party ever again. If you'd like to support the channel, head on over to theindianjesus.com for your very own official Indian Jesus merch. Only at theindianjesus.com. We do also have a completely free Discord server in there 24/7, hanging out, having a good time. We got our free chat, we got our content sessions, all that stuff. Like I said, a lot of fun. And if you want to join this channel, scroll just below here and hit that join button. You not only get members only streams here on YouTube, I just did one yesterday, but it also includes full access to the Discord server, which includes more channels and the voice channels, where after every single Monday, Wednesday, Friday stream, we go in for an after party. We don't have to worry about the YouTube censors. You are not stuck behind your keyboard. You're actually on screen with me and everybody else. It's a good time. Come and join us. All right. So it's going to be a little bit different here. Not too different, but I thought, maybe, I don't know, a couple months ago, I was like, all right, we really need to do a deep dive on philosophy. And it just didn't quite go the way that I wanted to go. But we have here Alex O'Connor and Philosophize This talking specifically about getting into philosophy and all that stuff. And it's so crucial to what we talk about in terms of politics, religion, all that stuff. You need to be able to have a background in understanding things in more than just one way. So let's dive in. As always, guys, if you cannot hear the video, please do let me know.
Philosophy. I'm not a philosopher at Oxford University. I just do this stuff because I love it. I'm a fan of philosophy. I'm not a philosopher. And my biggest goal is just to try to take the ideas that are cool, that have influenced me and inspired me. And I mean, when I first started this, that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to give that to other people as best I could. I think it's hard to get access to this stuff too. So it's not always the easiest. It's not the most accessible to get these ideas. So,
and of course, shout out to our boy Alex O'Connor, host of the Within Reason podcast here. If you would like to watch the entire podcast without my commentary, I do like to talk a lot. The link is in the description.
For me, that is my biggest goal.
Well, let's talk about how to approach this, how to get into this. The first question.
Philosophan, indeed I am. Indeed. Welcome to the party, Brad.
I suppose is, why should anybody care? I mean, you hear, if you've never done philosophy before, you might sort of stumble into a pub in Oxford, for example, and you overhear the table next to you, and they're saying, but do you really think that, essence precedes form? Isn't it clear from sort of rational reflection? I mean, I know you belong to a different school, my friend, but, if you think about the nature of essence, and if we define it and its necessary and sufficient conditions are, and you're listening to this and thinking, God, this sounds not only really difficult and technical, but also really kind of pointless. I mean, well, why are you spending your time doing any of this? So for somebody who has that idea that this is what philosophy is about, essentially throwing pretentious words around to get to what are either sort of trivially obvious facts or trivially false because they're so weird and wacky that you.
And I mean, how many people who are not really into thinking about stuff think about like a Jordan Peterson or something in that way? Shout out to Zippy DSM Lee. Welcome to the party. Also starting us off on Rumble with the Rumble Rant. Thank you so much. That's right. Every single donation comes with a treat for my co-host, Morty. Oh, and I almost forgot, guys. Well, I'll do this in a minute. I'll do that in a minute. Word up. Thank you, sir. And that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Thank you so much, sir.
Facts or trivially false because they're so weird and wacky that you can just dismiss them out of hand. That's what philosophy seems to be to them, just people doing that all the time. What are they getting wrong? What are they missing? What's the sort of beauty of philosophy here?
I certainly wouldn't come at them with any hostility, because it's understandable why they think that. It's not really prioritized in school or cultures, at least here in the US.
Facts.
What they're missing, I think, I mean, here's how I'd put it. Yeah. I think we all know what it feels like to look at somebody out there in the world and feel like they could benefit from, wow, they could use a little more critical thinking in their life. Wow, they could understand the assumptions they're bringing to bear when they make these, they have these views on the world. Wow, they really benefit from seeing the other side of the argument more. Wow, they benefit from formulating questions a bit more accurately to be able to get to what they're, to solve the problems that they think are worth solving to them. And I just think it's so
Am I the only one who saw that?
easy to just sit in solving to them.
Does he have like Tourette's or something? Well, you know what? Maybe he does, and we're just gonna move past it.
And I just think it's so easy to just sit in this middle place where you think I have the perfect amount of critical thinking about the world. Like anybody that thinks more than me about stuff, like those people at the pub, those people are just pedantic. They're just overthinking it. They're addicted to thinking. But anybody that thinks less than me, they're just ideologues. They're just stupid, right? I have the perfect amount. And then of course I'm going to reflect. Of course I'm going to get to a deeper understanding of what I think I know. But I'm only going to do that at the rate that the world throws stuff at me to question, to force me to question those things. And
yeah, how many people do you know that have no idea what they're talking about, but feel like, yeah, I got this? Whether it's, school, whether it's politics, whether it's parenting, whether it's driving, there's a lot of people who are just a little bit more confident than they probably should be.
And I'm not saying philosophy is for everybody. I think there's certainly people out there you could point to that it's not for, or it wouldn't be useful for them given their present state of mind.
I think that really only, unless you're not smart enough to think about things like we always talk about the analogy allergy. Like if you can't answer the question, how would you feel if you didn't eat yesterday? Maybe that's not for you, but I still think that that's something that you can teach, and you can learn. So I OCD general systems and processes, which is what?
But if you're somebody that likes to think about the world, I mean, you're probably listening to Alex O'Connor's podcast right now. So you're a thinking person. You're probably the smart person in your group of friends. Your family comes to you and asks you for help and advice about things. And you use your brain to solve problems in the world. And I'm saying with no hostility, like if you're one of those people and you're not well-versed in philosophy, I just feel like you're missing out. Like, I just think there's so much more for you to get to.
Yeah, and this goes in so many different ways, because life is just taking in what is thrown at you and internalizing it in different ways. And if you're able to kind of dance around the bad things a little bit better and see, whether it's seeing the silver lining of a bad moment or whatever it is, you really are missing out on a whole slice of life. Guys, if you do me a huge favor and hit that like button, it is free. It helps so much. Thank you.
It would be like saying that I want to be the best fighter in the world that I can possibly be, but I'm not going to study martial arts. I refuse to. I refuse to go down to the gym and train with other people that also want to get good at martial arts.
Hey, shout out to Six Job. Welcome to the party. Love to see some new names and faces. Welcome to the party. A good one to for your first time. We are doing a beginner's guide to getting into philosophy. Welcome.
Arts. I'm only going to get good at martial arts whenever somebody comes up and tries to whoop my ass in public. Like that's the only time I'm ever going to practice. It feels silly to not do it. It's such a good resource. If comedians go on stage and the whole job is to be funny, and they go up on stage and they say their jokes and the crowd doesn't laugh, and it's uncomfortable when they don't laugh. Like it feels bad, but they can go to their colleagues afterwards and they can say, hey, put this premise over there, change this punchline right here, hit this harder, order this differently. And they go up on stage again and they're funnier. And I just think that's
philosophy. That's philosophy. The understanding of how ideas work and communicate with each other is philosophy.
Philosophy does for the realm of ideas. It's an absolutely beautiful place for me. It's sacred, but I don't want to use religious terminology. To me, it feels sacred. This process that people are engaging in at the highest levels of, I have an idea, and now all you other smart people in the room use 110% of your brain power to critique my idea and find where conceptually it's lacking or where it's not connecting together well, where I'm not arguing as efficiently as I could. That to me is just that's human progress when it comes to thought, and it's beautiful to me. So that's what I think they're missing.
Trust, especially in a world where people are quite often coming up to you and essentially trying to fight you in the street. I mean, luckily we don't live in a time where that happens physically so much, but all the time, these methods of philosophy end up being employed in weird and wacky and surprising ways. If you have like an ethical conviction that begins to inform how you behave, it will slowly transform the person that you become. And if you study philosophy in such a way that you begin to think that certain things are actually true and you uncover new insights about how to live, then the person that you will be transformed into will be, according to your own standards, probably a better one. So it's probably worth it just on a sort of self-interest model as well as thinking about how there's some kind of intrinsic goodness to trying to get to truth and understand the world and make the world a better place. There's just a lot of reason, practical reason to think about this stuff, right?
Yeah, I think some people that are fans of philosophy get upset when people try to reduce it down to the self-help or the practical interest realm, which I understand, but you're 100% right. This goes on at different scales.
I would agree there. So I wasn't sure where he was going to take that, but there are a lot of people who get into this stuff and want to distill it down to like, okay, how can I make this make more money, or how can I make this what? But like that's okay, because that mindset comes from I mean, obviously we all want to make money and stuff, but seeing that that's the only benefit to it comes from a lack of a philosophical mind and a one-track mind. And so I think that's totally fine, because just like with this channel and with politics, not everybody is into the boring stuff. And so we got to cover, I mean, today we're not necessarily covering something directly political, but we got to cover the stuff that people care about. And then you get them interested in that, and they realize, oh, okay, the economy is tied to this. Oh, okay, these laws, this politician, so on and so forth. That is all connected. Brad says that describes theoretical physics process of validation from peer review. Exactly. And even though philosophy is not a hard science like that, there is a very rigorous process of exploring ideas and making sure that people aren't just following some BS, except for Christianity. Kidding.
For the practical interest realm, which I understand, but you're 100% right. This goes on at different scales. It's extremely useful just personally, only having conversations with yourself. It's helpful when it comes to managing the way that you're sort of interacting with your family or community at the level of society. We live, at least for now, in open societies where people have to vote and people have to, like, the whole process is founded on the idea that we're going to have this analytical capability of looking at the world as accurately as we can and knowing what's going on. And then we're going to evaluatively choose which better or worse decisions are, how to move forward from there. I mean, and then have conversations with other people about what the best idea is and how we should be structuring our societies moving forward. That's
almost like the marketplace of ideas. Like if you have good ideas and you bring them to other people who also have good ideas, then you can measure those ideas up and see which one is the best and follow that idea.
Absolutely. At all different scales, this is crucial, I think.
So what do you say to people who say, well, look, philosophy is about reading about metaphysics in like leather-bound books in a library somewhere, like with dust, and you're wearing a tweed jacket, and I get why maybe those ideas could be applicable, but like, look, I just don't need this philosophy stuff. Like, as you said yourself, it's not for everyone. Like, I like meta-ethics and so I don't need to study meta-ethics to know what's right and wrong.
Especially if you believe that you already have all the answers to the universe and how you should live and all this stuff from one holy book. There's well, why do I need to learn all of that? Everything I need to know is in this book, whether it's the Quran or the Bible or anything else.
I see something happen in front of me. I see someone kick a homeless guy. I know that that's wrong. And then the sort of, have you seen, there's this meme that I saw once of like somebody's dying on an aeroplane and they say, is there a doctor here? And this guy puts his hand up and says, yes, I'm a doctor of philosophy. And they're like, oh, well, we need to save this man. And it's like, well, we must consider whether the use of resources in this emergency is going to be most effectively served. If we take a utilitarian approach, then we could try to judge the hedonic calculus of this. However, the deontological approach would say maybe that he should stay alive. But then what about the rights of the rest of the past? And by the time he sort of finished talking, the guy's just dead, right? There's this parody of philosophy to make that it is just overthinking in a way that isn't actually useful to most people's everyday life.
But in the same way that, again, bring up Peterson, we'll talk about how you need to understand the depths of your own limitations in general, but especially when it comes to danger and violence. You need to be able to understand what you're capable of to understand that, that's something that you have to fight against. And so this is slightly different, but you need to be able to determine, okay, I don't really need to apply some deep thinking to this, but you need the ability for deep thinking in order to make that determination.
Yeah. I mean, just like being a black belt in jiu-jitsu would be way overkill at being able to defend yourself. At a certain point, I do think that
or being a bodybuilder. That's a great example with the black belt. You don't need, exactly. You don't need to be a black belt in order to defend yourself. But like in some respects, there's the aspect of, well, you might. And then the other side of it is like, okay, well, I may have started this to make sure that I don't get hurt, but now I just like doing this.
Weighing the pros and cons of utilitarianism versus deontology, although this is more complicated. Personally, I think that is valuable, and it does have real effects on the way that you assess moral situations in your everyday life. I would much rather have the person that has practiced in moral, that like moral proving ground.
Damn, ain't nobody gonna. We got one like. Can I get 3 likes? Let me just get 3. That's all. That's all. Somebody says chaos is what or who causes what. Order is the area where things happen. Why are humans so messed up? Is incompetence. Maybe I should back off the shrooms. Maybe so, but if you don't pay me for it, we good. We good. Thank you for another Rumble Rant. There you go. There you go. I should mention that this was the last time we did a special drawing for Morty. He can't get his head that far down, but he has cleaned that out. I've got another one right behind the monitor. I didn't want to tease him, but if we can get to $50 today, then he is gonna love it. He is gonna love it. Shout out to JL. Welcome to the party. Good to see ya. Is he going for the belt in August? Word up. Welcome. All right, let's dive back in here.
Have the person that has practiced in moral, that like moral proving ground, the thought experiments. Anyway, maybe I should just pause and say, there's this point of contention about moral thought experiments, like what you're talking about, weighing the pros and cons, utilitarianism, deontology. There's people that say that's a waste of time because it's not real life moral situations. There's messiness in the real world. Everything ultimately is predicated by social and economic outcomes that you're just ignoring when you isolate yourself into this echo chamber of you're on the side of a trolley track, you have a lever, there's 5 people on one, there's 1 person on the other, decide whether to pull the lever. Real life is never that simple. Like, we always have contextual complexities that we need to consider. And I think that there's some validity to that, sure, and point taken. But I also think some people that make that argument, I think, have forgotten what it's like to not be educated in moral philosophy and to want to know more about moral philosophy and to want to practice honing their skills of working through these ethical dilemmas, but not necessarily being able to do it in real life. You know, like it is useful to be able to sit with a friend where there's nothing at stake and to talk about how a utilitarian would pull the lever to save the 5 people to get the 1, and then bringing up, hey, but what if we harvested 5 organs from 1 person to save 5? What is
right? That's the immediate whenever we talk about the trolley problems. Again, really quickly, if you're not familiar, I'm sure you've heard this before, but you know, there's a runaway train and it's on a track, and there's 5 people tied to the track, and you're off in the distance, but there's a lever there, and if you pull the lever, then the train will go onto an alternate track, and there's 1 person tied to the track. So you have the 5 or you have the 1. Do you let it go and kill the 5 people, or do you pull the lever and it only goes and hits the 1 person? And so usually people typically will say, well, of course you pull the lever, 5-1, that's easy. So, okay, well, what if instead of it being a trolley, we now have a doctor and we have 1 healthy person. My camera's out. I see it. Anybody else seeing no camera? Let me know. So if we switch it and it's one person who is about to, one person is about to, or excuse me, 1 healthy person. And then you have 5 people who each need a different organ transplant. And so the question is, should the doctor kill the 1 healthy person to save all 5 people? And of course, everybody's like, of course not. Of course not. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to see how the same question, the same notion is answered very, very differently depending on the context.
And to talk about how utilitarian would pull the lever to save the 5 people to get the 1, and then bringing up, hey, but what if we harvested 5 organs from 1 person to save 5? What is the problem with that? Why is that different? I think there's undeniably a benefit to doing that. It's sort of a rising tide that raises all ships in your life. It's a level of thinking and a level of practice that I think improves your thinking. That's it.
Zippy is blessing me and Morty tonight. Yet another Rumble Rant, getting us up there. Every little bit counts. Let me get this out of the way. Morty's got it right there. Thank you, sir. Out sponsoring your damn self. Let's get Zippy some help. Let's get Morty some peanut butter. Thank you,
in your life. It's a level of thinking and a level of practice that I think improves your thinking. That said, to come back to the person that maybe they don't feel like anything's lacking in their life because there's no reason to study this philosophy on a mountaintop. I'm not saying you should study it on a mountaintop, and I certainly wouldn't be some person proselytizing this, like everybody needs to do this. If you're not, you're just I'm saying, I mean, the first thing is that, I mean, me saying I don't benefit from having any more philosophical insight in my life or any more awareness. That's exactly what somebody who lacks self-awareness would say. I mean,
yeah, this brings up the notion of like the Dunning-Kruger effect. You know, we just saw Terrence Howard thinking that he was, you know, amazing with all his new form of math, and 1 × 1 can't equal 1 because da 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 da. And he called out Neil deGrasse Tyson because he sent Neil this 36-page thing about how everything is wrong. And I don't know if you guys saw the Joe Rogan thing. We did cover it here, but and he called out Neil deGrasse Tyson, being like, yeah, he just like didn't even whatever. And then Neil deGrasse Tyson puts out like a 20-minute video, like yo, so what happened was he sent me this. And from the very first paragraph, I told him that this isn't going to work, but I spent a lot of time on it, and clearly so did he. So I wanted to give him the respect and so on and so forth. And again, it's just that idea of you start at zero knowledge, and then you start to learn something about something, and you're like, oh man, I'm a genius now, when you don't really know anything about anything. And then as you start to actually learn more, that confidence is like, oh, okay, I guess I don't really get it. And then slowly, as you start to actually learn now, okay, now you get. But when they call it mountain stupid. Because you go from learning nothing to like, oh, I know everything. That is Terrence Howard. Poor Terrence Howard. You got mad at the peer review. You can't fake it. You can't fake it. Six Drop says, don't let anyone talk you into getting anywhere near some train tracks, kids. Good call. I know it's crazy to me how often people get hit by trains. It is insane. And like people just walking. Why are you walking on train tracks? Why are you stopping your car? I've seen people stop their car on the train tracks while the thing is down.
What? Stupid.
Good advice, Six Drops. Good advice.
In my life, or any more awareness. That's exactly what somebody who lacks self-awareness would say. I mean, that has to bother you at some level if you're a thinking person and you value being self-aware and self-determining about things. It just.
Oh, did I read
it? There's a sense in which I
don't think I read it. I don't think I read it. I apologize, sir. So Zippy said, observing processes and behaviors and outcomes, you either blame a thing or look more deeply at cause and effect. That grounds you in a type of natural universal philosophy. Yeah, I completely agree. Completely great. Shout out to Vamp Fashions. Welcome to the party. So it's only after decades of really intensive study you can figure out how little you know and is known about even a tiny subject. Yes, definitely. It's there's very few things that you can just know comprehensively. I mean, I'm sure it's not nothing, but there's I'm just hedging, but I don't really think there is anything. Let's just say there's something, but you're not going to be able to completely learn everything there is to learn. There's always more to learn, and there's always new things to learn. But that, like we're talking about with Dunning-Kruger, if you're not willing to accept that and you think, oh, yeah, I got this, then stupid, not going to work out for you.
Thing about things. There's a sense in which I would never want to force somebody to do anything like that. I would never even implore them to do it. I think that it is undeniably valuable if you value the conceptual engineering of your thought. There's so many things that you don't know that you would be making a mistake on that studying philosophy would get you to. And I also think there's value to it just when it comes to a lot of practical skills when it comes to having conversations and arguments in general, that have nothing to do with studying a specific metaphysical text.
Like politics. Again, that's the thing that it doesn't. I don't understand how we know that so many people who are very passionate about politics. Not everybody, of course, but I'm saying there's a big a cohort of people who are into politics who have no idea what they're talking about. And so if you just understand that there's that level of fervor that people are going to have because of the fact that they're out on Mount Stupid and they don't see that there can be another side. They don't see the nuance. They don't see the complexity. It's just, it's this good thing and that bad thing. You're a bad thing. I'm a good thing. Then you realize that it's like, okay, we have to, again, raise the level of consciousness so people can understand, so that when we're having these conversations, we know how to reach people and find them where they're at. And this is when you become truly expert in a subject. You can begin to explain where the lack of knowledge lies in that subject. Indeed. Well said.
In general, that have nothing to do with studying a specific metaphysical text, right?
Yeah, I do think that we run the risk of overthinking sometimes in situations where it's not appropriate. However, having the tools to do so doesn't mean you always need to. So like
Right.
you may be a black belt in Taekwondo, but if somebody comes up to you and tries to steal your wallet, you're not going to begin by sort of stepping back and going through all the whatever warm-ups you usually do, and then bowing and then making sure you're following all of the rules. Like it's useful to have that under your belt, as it were.
See, Brad, this is one of those things that you need to learn enough to realize you will never figure it out. Never.
But it doesn't mean you need to employ it all the time. But even in situations where you're not employing it, it's worth having that availability open to you. I mean, you said a moment ago the idea that well, how moral, we were talking about how moral decision making can seep into our everyday lives, and perhaps people don't realize how commonly that already happens. I mean, there are areas where we've done moral calculations so long ago that we kind of forget that we even did it or that we're doing it. I mean, if you're walking down the street and a homeless person asks you for some money.
Hey, shout out to Stephanie. Welcome to the party. I know that word. Yeah. Welcome. So is anyone else getting some philosophy inception vibes? Well, we are kind of a little bit. Sometimes you that's the way to go. I've said a subject I've studied. What did you need to know? Start with the more beautiful they are, the more you need to treat them like a burn victim. Yeah, really, exactly.
Or that we're doing it. I mean, if you're walking down the street and a homeless person asks you for some money, and you think, well, I've got £5 in my pocket, but well, I don't want to give it to them. I'd rather go and give it to a charity that makes sure it gets put to good use, because I don't know how they're going to spend it. So you go and do that. That's a sort of normal everyday thought for someone living in a big city. But that,
I mean, I would think the opposite. They're like, okay, at least if I'm giving this person money, then they get to go use it however they want. If I give it to some corporate or some 501c3, then it's going to, overhead costs and the do they call it a CEO? The president, the founder, whatever, you know what I mean. But at least that person's, getting the money directly. And so usually, if you're worried about homeless people taking your money and buying drugs or alcohol, then usually you want to offer food. But the thing is, especially in America, food is pretty goddamn easy to get. And that's a big reason why when they're asking for money and then you offer them food, they're like, nah, I'm good. I live behind a restaurant, and they just throw out food that you pay for all the time. So there's, again, nuance. They have said they've been judged rightly and wrongly based solely on how they look from across the room. All their lives, they crave being heard. Yeah, the 8 and above, I don't have that kind of time. I'm happy. I'm happy with a nice soft 6 who's peaceful. If you're not even a hard 6, soft 6, and you're peaceful, and I'm happy.
How they're going to spend it, so you go and do that. That's a sort of normal everyday thought for someone living in a big city, but that is steeped in so many ethical considerations. The ethical motivation to give the money at all, and the idea of charity, and the sort of Peter Singer idea of how much money you're supposed to give if you have it available to you. The idea of, the idea of the ethics of alcoholism, or the ethics of, spending money on things that you yourself think are wrong to spend on. The ethics of giving people the autonomy to do things that you consider to be immoral. Like, should you enable somebody? Is freedom so worthwhile that you'll give somebody money to do something that you think is immoral just because you value their freedom to do it more than you value the morality of the act? All of those those are big philosophical questions, and all of them are like baked into this decision, the simple decision that you might make on a daily basis. That, I mean, there's that old joke, I saw a homeless person come up to me and ask for some money, and I thought, do I really want this money going on alcohol and gambling? I thought, no, I don't. So I gave it to him. I think that in all
that's a good point too. Like, I'm probably just gonna spend it on bullshit too.
These situations, in all of these situations, the moral thought that goes into developing the sort of intuition that you just think on the spot. Yeah, this is what I'm going to do because this is what I always do. People forget how important philosophy has been in coming to those conclusions.
Right. Yeah, and those conclusions haven't been made consciously by the person. They sort of internalize. It's possible, very possible, for people to internalize all of their moral intuitions like that, and to just sort of be operating on autopilot. This is why I love Simon Blackburn's definition of philosophy as like conceptual engineering. It's if an engineer builds a bridge and they study the history of bridge building, they study the materials that the bridge is built out of, how they connect together to form the bridge as a whole, how it bears weight here, how if you put weight over there, it will collapse if it's weak.
I love this example too, because this is a very concrete example of, obviously you need to know a lot of different things about a lot of things in order to build a bridge. But the analogy completely works, because the concepts can be even more complex, even though there's a lot that we think about when it comes to building something so big. Excuse me. Yeah, that the old noggin, is never enough. Bam said philosophy. We are made of bits of electro and magnetic energy, and through what we connect to everything. And our intention choice can affect everything. Agreed. Yeah, maybe 3 threes and a 1 to send for beer and pizza. There you go. I like the way you think.
There's weight here. How if you put weight over there, it will collapse if it's weak. Engaging in that sort of moral discourse, the conversations about hypothetical moral situations, or even studying morality just theoretically, I think strengthens your bridge. It helps you understand the why behind the components that make up your worldview. It's possible to just internalize them and be on autopilot, like I said. So,
okay, yeah, well, enough of this. We've convinced people that philosophy is worth doing. So let's figure out how to actually go about it.
All right,
your podcast begins with the pre-Socratic philosophers, then talks about Socrates, talks about Aristotle. Sort of going chronologically from some sort of starting point in the history of Western philosophy. I'm not sure how that precisely develops over the rest of the show, but do you think that is a good place to start? As in, if somebody wants to get into philosophy, suppose they do it by listening to your podcast, do we begin with the ancients and sort of move forward, or is there a better or a different way in? Where would you recommend people start?
Well, I certainly wouldn't recommend starting with my show back then. It was 11 years ago, and it's horrible. I can't even listen to it myself without, my doctor has advised against it. It's not the worst place you could start, going back to the classics, going to antiquity. It's one place. It's a popular place. If I'm given a piece of advice right now, just 2024, Stephen, I'm saying forget any chronology to it, although I'm sure it's useful. Pick something that you're interested in and find out how to learn about that. Because I think that what stops people when they start learning these things, because I think philosophy, when it's done well, all that we've been talking about so far, is a bit uncomfortable. And if you're putting in that, there's so many just demons calling to you in the world around you, like just TikTok and Netflix and fun stuff that's just surface. It doesn't take any work at all. It's part of our plight as modern people. And I just think finding something that you can dedicate this work to, that you're actually interested in, is probably the most important thing to me. Now, within reason. I mean, don't have the first thing that you're interested in be showing German idealism or something like that. There's obviously limitations, but find something that you're like excited to know about, and then find books that have to do with that, which I can explain. I can give tactics for how to do that too. But I think the first thing is just finding something that you're actually interested in.
Yeah, we'll do that. By the way, that is the first time in this show's history that someone has done the sort of name of the show thing unintentionally while talking. You said the words "within reason," and I don't think that's ever happened in the show's history. So you've got to sort of look and smile at the camera. I think that one sort of observation I've made about people when they're looking at philosophers, and they say like, oh, like I really like this philosopher, I really like Schopenhauer, or I really like Hume, or
so Pam says Zen is the best philosophy. It does nothing for you, but you get to lay in the sun in a garden and call it meditating. There's a lot of philosophy that's like that. It's just like, just sit, just chill. And I mean, that's the irony of a lot of this stuff is, we as they were just, going over and over and over and over. It's like you're overthinking everything. And a lot of philosophy is breaking things down so that you're not ruminating about, did I do the wrong thing in the past, or what am I going to do about the future? It's about living in the now and preventing yourself from overthinking. Brad says, tell my wife of 30 years that you won't wake up until the next argument. Good one. Hey, we got our boy Guam Tech in the building. Welcome to the party. So that was Zen. This is Tao. Dilly. Thank you. Welcome to the party.
Philosopher. I really like Schopenhauer, or I really like Hume, or I really like Wittgenstein. I think it's very rare for somebody to, with basically no interest in the philosophy of language, which is what Wittgenstein is best known for, to sort of sit down, read Wittgenstein, and suddenly go, oh gosh, I'm blown away. This is amazing. I mean, I'm sure it happens, but I think what really happens with, I mean, Wittgenstein opens his tractus, his sort of first attempt at putting this down on paper, with a phrase like, I suspect this book won't be useful to anybody except those who already agree with its contents. And I thought that was a stunning admission for him to make, as if he recognized that his role here is that if you sort of agree with me and if you've observed the world in this way, then here's my attempt to synthesize it and explain it. And I think that's so much what like good philosophy does, is it takes an idea that you sort of think is a bit intuitive, and when you read it in a text, you sort of go, oh yeah, no, that does make sense, because it was sort of somewhere in there already.
That's a beautiful thing about, I think this applies to philosophy as well as psychology, that a lot of it, it's like you just said, like, I kind of already knew that. I just didn't know that I knew that, because a lot of it is intuitive, like we were talking about before, that if you go and, want to just go and kick a homeless person, like you have an inkling that that's not what you're supposed to be doing. And this same exact thing that he's talking about right now also occurs, because I went to school for psychology. I just studied a lot of philosophy, but same exact thing. When you think about, the representative heuristic, I remember a time when I was out at the mall with my parents, and I was like, how come U.S. soldiers, if they're in the army or whatever, they have to wear the uniforms all the time? And I was like, what are you talking about? I was like, well, whenever we see, and he's like, well, that's because when we go out and you see them not in uniform, you don't know that they're in the army. Like, oh, okay. And the way I learned it in school was about plane crashes. That it's a very common phobia to not want to be in a plane, even though it's the safest way to travel. You hear about plane crashes. They had Lost that was based on a plane crash. They had Yellow Jackets that was based on a plane crash. They had what was the other one? I don't know, but a bunch of these that are based on plane crashes, and you see that leaves an imprint. And so when you see that, like, oh, that's called a thing, and that works that way, then you can now look out for that and be like, I kind of already knew things that are represented in a certain way are going to have an imprint on me. But if I didn't hear that, then it's hard to understand. Gonzak says, if I remember right, Zen is based on becoming okay with yourself, but Tao is based on becoming okay with the world. So I'm not too familiar with both, but that does sound right, in the sense that, yeah, that Zen is very much focusing on how you can't change anything. Not that you can't change anything, but there are things that you can't change. I think you're probably better with it than I am, but sounds about right. Bam says, as Wayne said, I am. That is the single most important question you can answer in your life. The only one that comes close is to why are you that? Well, I am is a statement, not a question. I think you mean, what am I? Or who am I? Or what am I? Or where am I? Those are all interesting questions, but I am is a statement. But why are you that is definitely a good question. Shout out to Mercy Choke. Welcome to the party. Good to see you. Good to see you. Yes, if you please. Thank you. Vance says, Guantech, from the little, maybe 20 books I've read, they both approach becoming enlightened to understand who you are and why you exist. Yeah. And I mean, most types of philosophy are this. Who are you? What do you exist? What are you doing here? These kind of basic but also gigantic questions. The fact that you see it in all cultures, you see it all across human history, and they're very basic questions, but they are also very wide questions at the same time. Shout out to TV Viewerski. Welcome to the party. I don't know, are you?
Did in a text, you sort of go, oh yeah, no, that does make sense, because it was sort of somewhere in there already. I mean, I think the word education, the Greek root of education, literally means to draw out, to bring out what's already within you. And so I think if you're looking for somewhere to start, chances are, if you're listening to this show, you'll already have heard some philosophical names, right? And depending on what you've been interested in, you'll have heard different names. So maybe you are a bit of a doomer and you're looking at a lot of like self-help stuff. Maybe you're feeling a bit depressed and you're looking for philosophy as a tool to get you out of that. And you might have heard people throwing around the name like Albert Camus. You might have just heard that name sort of here.
Put one in the chat if you've heard of Albert Camus.
And there.
I think it's Camot, but or
The fact that you've been interested enough in content that other people have thought is relevant to that thinker implies that that thinker might be a good place for you to start. Whereas if you've never heard that name, I mean, you'll probably have heard of Albert Camus, but if he never comes up in any of the stuff you're already interested in, then it might be like totally out of left field and uninteresting to you. If you listen to a lot of Jordan Peterson, you hear him talking about Nietzsche like all the time. Again, you might not know anything about Nietzsche.
Well, I mean, the only person that he mentions more than Nietzsche is Carl Jung, but yes, definitely.
You hear him talking about Nietzsche like all the time. Again, you might not know anything about Nietzsche, but you know that he's come up enough in the conversations you've been having in other areas to know that there must be something in there that will be relevant to your discussion. Similarly, you know, you might read Dostoevsky because you've heard him mentioned so many times. So I would recommend going into the philosophy section of a bookshop, scanning through the names. What do you see? Heidegger. I've heard of that name, but I don't know anything about him. Aristotle. Yeah, definitely heard of him. He's the Greek guy. And whereas if you're a Catholic, you might be like, Aristotle. Oh, people are always talking about him. I'm gonna start there. If you're not, then you might go, oh, I'm not really sure. Maybe you see Albert Camus. Maybe you see Jean-Paul Sartre, and you're like, oh, those come up all the time. So whatever.
Right. So the idea here is that there's no there's no starting point where you have to, okay, first you do this, then you do that, then you do that, then you do that. And level 1 is this, and level 2 is that, and level 3 is that. It's just a different, it's a collection of different people, different thoughts, different times, different cultures, you know, all of this stuff. And there's no really starting and ending point. It's just thoughts. It's just stuff to think about. And this is why I get so frustrated when people think that, again, a holy book, one particular source can be so widespread and cover so much of the world that we know we don't understand. But you're still saying like, nope, it's all here. Well, is it though? Is it though? Apparently not. Apparently not. Bam says, yeah, but Jordan also has a house full of communist art and in redneck Alberta. I mean, yeah, but is that? Yeah, but he's one of the most anti-communist people I think I know. Well, I don't know him, but I know of. So he said, are there any books that boil down philosophy, cover a wide range of it, but simple enough for my single cell brain to keep up? So, I mean, his podcast, this guy over here, Philosophize This. He is tagged. The channel is tagged in the description. That is a great place to start. And exactly why I wanted, you know, this conversation to be what we're doing, because that's exactly it. That's exactly it. There's no like all of it, and you boil down. And this is philosophy. There's different schools of thought, and so like for example, you know, I talk about Rene Descartes a lot because as somebody who came from Christianity and then to atheism, then you know the idea that anything that I know could be false was very in line with what Rene Descartes was thinking about when he wrote about. And so that just appealed to me, and that was a starting point for me. That doesn't necessarily need to be a starting point for you, but you can. I'm sure there. Let's take a gander here. All right, so let's do basic books to what are we trying to say? Books to start doing philosophy. Well, let's see what we got here. So we got some Wittgenstein, we got some Bertrand Russell, we got some good, and yeah, so like all of these things are very fundamental. I mean, of course, they got a philosophy for dummies here, but all of these are very fundamental in their own thinking. So none of these books are going to, you know, none of these are going to be like, oh, if you want to read this one, you have to make sure that you read this one and this one first, otherwise you won't get. They're each their own thing, and they take the world, the universe, life, God, religion, belief, all of these kinds of things, and they give their own experience of it. And that's exactly what they're talking about right now is how to get into this. Just pick something that sticks out to you. If you hear me talking about Rene Descartes a lot, well, go read some Rene Descartes. and pick something that just stands out to you. And I think they called it like algorithmic, where it's just like whatever feeds you, or just Google philosophy videos. There was I don't know if it's still up. I remember a while ago it was up, but then I couldn't find it. But Crash Course, the Crash Course YouTube channel has a great oh, that is still here. Word up. So yes, this. So here, I'm gonna drop this in the chat. This is an amazing place to start. Let's they're pretty, I think they're pretty copyright heavy, but whatever. We'll dive in a little bit.
I've got a new set with new props, like my friend Nietzsche and his sweet but ultimately totally meaningless mustache. And I'm here in this fancy new place to dive into a very old discipline. This year in Crash Course, I'm excited to be tackling some of the biggest questions yet. What is consciousness? Truth? Goodness? Do we even know anything? And how? No, seriously, Socrates, how do we know? These are the daunting questions we're going to try to wrap our heads around this year on Crash Course Philosophy. Well, I spent the last few years teaching.
So let's see, this is the preview. Let's see, okay, what is...
I'm Hank Green, and you and I are about to embark on a journey, an approach they have to a certain topic. Like you might have a philosophy when it comes to golf, though I personally do not. But we are going to use this word more narrowly to describe a way of approaching the world that traces its roots back to ancient Greece, 500 years before the Common Era. This was a time of great intellectual movement around the world. Buddhism and Jainism were developing in Asia at the same time philosophical thought was emerging in Greece. There, scholars were tangled up in a distinction they were just beginning to make between philos and mythos, or what we'd now roughly call science and storytelling. At that time, there were bards like Homer who were trying to understand and explain the world through stories, while the...
And so, this is, it's very, short videos, 10-minute videos here, and they start with this. And then, as you can see over here, they've got, what is philosophy? How to argue, philosophical reasoning, how to argue induction and abduction, Leonardo DiCaprio and the nature of reality. Cartesian skepticism, and then it gets further and further. There's 47 videos here, and I have watched every single one of them, and they are very, very good. First, I feel like there was something. I think, all right, what are we gonna do? I'm gonna add this to my videos to react to, and assuming it's still there, we're gonna do a whole series on intro to philosophy. How about that? Shout out to Zippy for that. She likes the commie art. Fair enough. I'm not too much into the arts, as it were. Shout out to Equality and Deference over on Rumble. Welcome to the party. So philosophy requires thought, and that's tricky business these days. Indeed, it is. And that's why, again, I want to introduce this to you, because there's a bar that it's a separating thing that either you get it or you don't. And there's just too much where you need to be able to have, just dip your toe in. You don't need to be an expert, but as long as you see that, like, oh, okay, this narrow vision that I have is a little narrow. Saying how old is O'Connor? I think he is like, I think he said 26. He just said it in the we did his debate with what's his face, with Dinesh D'Souza last night. I think he said it was 26, but not quite 30. I don't know. Not quite 30. Let's call it that. But welcome to the party. Let's dive back in here.
Camus, maybe you see Jean-Paul Sartre and you're like, oh, those come up all the time. So whatever's just been coming up in whatever you've already been doing, those names that sound familiar to you, there's a reason they're familiar to you. And because they have been thought relevant and useful to and by the people that you've obviously already been listening to. So I think that would be a good place to start.
We'll call that the algorithmic method of finding a book. I love it, dude.
Yes.
I love that as a policy. The other thing that I would say that I think is useful for anybody out there, that because what you're talking about is somebody finding something that they're interested in when they don't know yet what they're interested in, which is a problem.
Yep.
Because again, like, algorithms typically give us all our content. So when you have to become the person that decides what to find, it can be kind of tough. But what I would say also, I take a page out of the book of Nietzsche. I do this in my life all the time, just in general. He talks about envy. Like, in short, what I'd say is, like, find somebody whose philosophical knowledge about something you are envying or admiring in a conversation, and make that a part of you. I mean, if you watch this show,
shout out to Taylor Wooden. Welcome to the party. Good to see you. We also got Steven, bad with names, McKeown. I'm sorry, I'm gonna call you Steven. Welcome to the party. Good to see ya. What else did I miss here? Some starting points to non. Yeah, that's the way to go. Just fine. And again, it's all of it is starting points, because it's everybody's individual approach to the universe. And so it's like, if you were looking at like, oh, okay, I've heard of Lutch, I've heard that name, the Indian Jesus. Oh, he's definitely, I'm not saying I am, I'm using myself as an example. Then what you could do is just go back to the beginning of my channel, and you could see that I'm, I'm not talking about anything that you've never heard of. It's just the ideas that I present. Okay, maybe you definitely need to hear me explain what semantic obfuscation is. But other than that, I'm just speaking English. I'm just speaking plain English. And these guys, it might be speaking older English, but at the end of the day, older languages, they're not all in English, but they are translated. And so yeah, as long as you can read, you are good. Mercy Choke said, I favor the surrealists, many of whom were communists. Don't care for their ideology, but much of their art is spectacular. Oh, fair enough. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, obviously, in the arts in general, there's a lot of amorphous thinking in terms of like what is real and what is true. And that works for art, doesn't really work for politics. Not sure what that means, but are you communist? All right, fair enough. We are welcoming of all here. We may strongly disagree, but welcome to the party.
Or admiring in a conversation, and make that a part of you. I mean, if you watch this show, if you've seen videos of Alex O'Connor doing his thing, you've seen this talent that he has of reductio ad absurdum. Like, he literally puts ethical, like Peter Singer, Peter Boghossian, Sam Harris recently, like, just puts philosophers through the paces on their own theories and finds those levers that they're pulling that they need to further justify the fact that we aren't appealing to some sort of objective morality written into any intrinsic structure to things. It's more complicated than that. But that's all just skill. If you wanted to get good at that, if you see, I'm talking about, if you see a skill, somebody answer a question in a way that's particularly eloquent, and you're like, wow, I wish that was a piece of me.
Yes, exactly what I was saying before, that maybe you're not born with it. But this is something that it's more natural to some than others, but it's definitely something you can learn. Yeah. Okay, that's how you spell it. So yeah, they were talking about Albert Camus before. James Lindsay, yeah. I mean, a more contemporary person on like Twitter today. Absolutely, though. People who, and then that's the other thing, is that you'll be able to tell just on Twitter and stuff who has a wider range of this type of thought, because you'll be able to see it. Like, oh, they took this and connected to that, which may seem way out of the blue for you, but because they just read, this book or this person or whatever, then it's like, okay, yeah, they made that connection, and you're just repeating it, which isn't a bad thing. We want to stand on the shoulders of those who came before us, but we can't do that if we don't know anything about them.
Somebody answer a question in a way that's particularly eloquent, and you're like, wow, I wish that was a piece of me. Use that also as a marker for what you should be going for. I mean, it's fueled by like a bit of vanity if you're coming from the wrong place, but like, I think it is what Nietzsche says, is that envy, it's one of the 7 deadly sins. People think of it as so bad, but it's also, if we interpret Nietzsche in a certain way, it is a personalized guide for what you want in the world. If you're ever confused about what you might want next, just look at what you envy in somebody else and try to make that a part of your life. That's,
I mean, even right there, if you're sitting wherever you're sitting, watching this on whatever you're watching, and you're kind of feeling a little stuck, think of something that you envy. Think of someone that you envy. Now you have direction. That's philosophy right there. That's
another.
Chances are you've listened to somebody talking about philosophy, be it like a public figure, or be it like a friend or a professor, teacher. And that's what's made you think, I want to learn about this philosophy stuff. Just ask them. Don't ask them, what's your advice as to where to start reading philosophy? Because they'll probably say, oh, well, you should probably begin with Plato and then move through the Socratic. No, just ask them like, hey, what philosophy book did you read that you think was the most influential on you? And they might give.
And again, for me, absolutely was Rene Descartes. I forget exactly what the title of it is. I think he did like, what was it? It was, I think he had, they're simple names. I forget. Let's see. Yeah, he had. Okay, no, I had a different. So his from the which one goes first? Discourse on the method, and so yeah, we're going back to the 1600s here, and there's so much, and that's just me personally. That's just me personally. Shout out to Kevin Johnson. Welcome to the party. Thank you very much. There you go. Another Descartes fan. I think, therefore, I am. You got it. Welcome to the party. Mercy Choke said James Lindsay is good at explaining the postmodernists to amateurs. Seems like he has a knack for that. And where does that come from? From being able to understand what it is they think. And how do you learn to understand what crazy people think? You familiarize yourself with different ways of interpreting information and different ways of thinking. That's it. Bam says, it's kind of backward. You should think of who you are and what you can do to serve humanity, not what you want of someone else's stuff. That's just sad. Well, yes, if you are stuck in life, that is sad. But you should do so. Like, if you are already just thinking of who you are and what you can do to serve humanity, then you wouldn't be stuck. We're talking about if you need if you need some sort of drive, then that's a good way. If you already have the drive, then you don't need that. We're talking about if you do need drive.
Hey, what philosophy book did you read that you think was the most influential on you? And they might give you something totally random that you've never heard of before in your entire life. But if, as you say, if that's the person that you're looking up to, if you're like, man, I want to be more like that, then the reason why they're so, different from the person that you want to be is because they've read these things that you haven't read. It should be a bit out of left field and a bit out of the blue if you really want to change something about yourself. I think chances are, whatever they recommend, you'll have heard the name before, and you're not going to make a wrong decision here, right? Like if you start reading Immanuel Kant, and you start reading the direct text because this person that you like talks about Kant all the time, and you realize, I just can't do this. This is too complicated. I don't understand what's going on.
You lost nothing but a little bit of time, and you definitely could have spent that time doing some dumber shit. Taylor said, if you have nothing, find who you are and what you want to excel in. At least that's how I love to live. Yeah, and again, there's people who, like, if they could just do this, then they wouldn't need the help. Like, the fact that many of us can do this is like, that's what you're supposed to do. But we're talking about if you're experiencing some depression, or just in general, you're just stuck and you don't know what to do with your life, and you're just kind of in a rut and you don't know where to go. You're kind of just working a dead end job. You're not in a relationship, whatever. Then diving into philosophy is a great way to get that drive. Kevin Johnson said, I'm just about to walk and take the camera about adventure in the Jesus costume. I'll send you my link and appreciate your thoughts on it. You do that. Hey, shout out to Desert Druid. Welcome to the party.
Talks about Kant all the time, and you realize, I just can't do this. This is too complicated. I don't understand what's going on. Then you can just put it back on the shelf and you can try something else. You'll only have wasted a tiny little bit of time, and it's especially if you run the risk of potentially actually being captured by it. Like, it's always worth doing. It doesn't really matter, as far as I'm concerned, where you start, because it's easy for us as people who've been sort of talking about philosophy for years and years and years now to sort of comprehensively say, okay, well, if I'm thinking about it, I'd say you should start with this school and then move into this school and then study this and do this.
This would be like, if you're this specifically to Zippy. This would, the inverse of this would be like, if I wanted to start building computers, then it's not something that I would necessarily know where to start. And you would have a very, at least a much better idea of, like, okay, well, if you want to do this, then do this and that and that and that and that and that and that. But that's a much more linear thing. You can't, I mean, again, I don't know shit about building computers, but you can't, you can't do a step 7 before you do step 1. And I mean, in terms of individuals, the individual philosophers, it works out that it doesn't, you're not going to waste your time that way. Bam said, if you're stuck in life, it just means you don't really want what you had planned. Maybe start finding someone to help, someone to love, and see if that shows you a path forward. Yeah, or just read some philosophy.
But that's not how either of us did. I mean, I don't know if that's how you did it. It's certainly not how I did it. I get into philosophy from listening to the New Atheist debates and listening to Christopher Hitchens, who
I said, shit, me too.
Since, made no hesitation in saying I don't think has a great sort of philosophical worldview. I've criticized that, but he was still my entry. If it weren't for Christopher Hitchens, I might not have heard of the founding fathers, and if it weren't for the founding fathers, I might not have heard of the Enlightenment philosophers who introduced me to empiricism and eventually to people like David Hume and that kind of thing. Like, that's a weird path, and I would never say to somebody, hey, you want to get into philosophy? Okay, start by reading Mortality by Christopher Hitchens, which is the first book of his I ever read. That would make literally no sense. But I'd be lying if I said that wasn't the way I did it. And so the more broad advice is, don't go and read Christopher Hitchens, but go and read what captures you. Go and read what captures you. And then, more importantly, once an author does capture you, go and read the authors that captured them before them.
That's a good. So especially those of you talking about James Lindsay here. Then okay, who I mean, you can ask him, he's still alive, he's on Twitter, you can tweet him right now. You're like, hey, who in philosophy, who inspired you? Read them. It's not something where you can really do it wrong. It's just learning different. It's just like watching YouTube channels. Like, there's no wrong way to jump. Like, yes, obviously you'll get more out of my stream if you've seen other streams before and you have a better understanding of who I am. But if you're new here, welcome. You're gonna have a good ass time. You know what I mean? And so philosophy is the same way. Just dive in somewhere. And if you don't like this channel, go to the next channel. If you don't like that channel, find another channel. Same thing with philosophy. The same thing. Getting here. Vam said again, go golf. Except you can't win. Then enjoy the walk in nature anyway. And drink a few weed drums. I don't know what that means. But I can put it together. By the fireplace afterwards. There you go.
Once an author does capture you, go and read the authors that captured them before them.
Or the authors that most disagree with their greatest intuitions that you agree with. That's what I did in my past.
Also true.
Yeah. I mean, is that part of the reason? I don't know entirely your history. I mean, I know that you're the Cosmic Skeptic legend and everything, and so you primarily are an atheist back in the day. Did you go to school for theology because it was a bit like a crazy person going to school for psychology, because it's the thing that you're like trying to understand what you disagree with?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I definitely went to school for psychology because I was like, I know I am fucked up. I got to figure this out.
Well, in a sense, I mean, I did philosophy and theology, and at Oxford they don't let you do philosophy on its own. Can't be done. You've got to pair up with something. So I had to pick something, and it could have been philosophy and French, could have been philosophy and maths. Well, it couldn't have been because I got 3 U's the first time I did maths at A level.
I'm showing
U's? What is a U? How do they grade things over there in the UK?
Absolute ignorance of the university setting. I apologize for that, but I do.
No, I mean, that's really abnormal. It's a very abnormal thing for them to do as a university, to not allow you to do philosophy on its own. Basically, every other university lets you do that. It's just here that they wouldn't. And so one of the options was philosophy and theology. And so I thought, yeah,
I do. I watch this at 2x. But I y'all wouldn't be able to keep up. Maybe you, Kevin, can, but people can't keep up. I had this is actually at 1.1 because I can't stand watching things at normal speed. It makes them sound drunk to me. But I got a good good tip from a friend that not everybody watches it that way. So you gotta keep it slow. It's
just here that they wouldn't. And so one of the options was philosophy and theology. And so I thought, this will be useful practically because I make videos about atheism. It would be good to know. But I did also just find it the most interesting. I mean, the faculty is theology and religion. So it's not just confessional theology. It's also the study of religion. So that you can do anthropology. You can do the sort of history of religious thought.
Shout out to J-Bon. Wants to come on live and debate me. All right. Well, send me an email at theindianjesusofficial@gmail.com or send me a DM in the free Discord and let's set it up.
And so that's why I think I chose to study it. But it's interesting, like, because in the university environment, it is much more systematized. It is much more, we're going to begin somewhere. But even at university, we didn't. It's not like we sat down and they said, okay, we're going to go back to the Socratics and the pre-Socratics, and we're going to start there and we're going to move forward. No.
So Taylor, I bet you a lot of people would read this and say, I love doing things slow and observing things while also taking everything in at once. And I think a lot of people will be like, well, wait, what does that mean? How do you do that? And maybe I don't have exactly the picture of your process in mind, but I get it because there is a way. Via it's not happening tonight, J-Bon. I'm doing a show. This is one of those things where if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, then that tells you can do some philosophy and get it. Shout out to Poon Cooter. Welcome to the party. Good to see you. As I said, send me an email or DM me on Discord.
Socratics and the pre-Socratics, and we're going to start there and we're going to move forward. No, first thing I ever did at university was studied Mill's utilitarianism. Utilitarianism, the famous essay that John Stuart Mill writes, which comes in Victorian England, so thousands of years after the Greeks that we've just been talking about. And
shout out to Stephen Colbert Cheese. All right, I don't know what that fully means, but I'll leave it there. And so I mean, I'm not super familiar with Stephen's thinking as much. I did once I heard about Philosophize This, I did try to hop on and make that a regular podcast that I listened to. But I don't know. It was just I'm more of a politically minded person as of late, and there's just too much. There was too much going on, and I just kind of fell off. Again, I as I said, I am doing a show right now. Do I come to your house? Do I come to your job and tell you that I want you to do what I want you to do when I want you to do it? That would make me kind of a dick, wouldn't I? I mean, maybe that's
thousands of years after the Greeks that we've just been talking about, and
stop trying to win arguments and just have the conversations.
Pretty important, but a lot of even utilitarians today would say not the most compelling utilitarian in the world. But that's where we started. And the thing is, even though if you ask me about utilitarianism, I might say, oh, don't read Mill, go and read, I don't know, Sidgwick or something. And even if you said, I want to study ethics, I might say, oh, well, don't start with utilitarianism, start somewhere else. Utilitarianism is familiar to a lot of people. They understand that there are debates about maximizing good and minimizing suffering and killing 5 people to save 1 and vice versa. And so, although it's a little bit almost random seeming to just start there, we just picked it, we studied it, we did that text, and from there you sort of open up Pandora's box, because there'll be a footnote and there'll be an objection that introduces you to another area of philosophy and another one. So you've just got to pick somewhere to start.
That's it. Just pick somewhere and go. There's no starting. There is no specific starting point, and there's no specific ending point. Just do it. There's stuff out there. The same way you. Again, I think gaming is a good analogy to this. Like you could just pick any game that you want and just start playing, and then you'll get better. And then you're like, oh, well, this game's kind of like that game, and you get good at that, and so on and so forth. I don't really game, but let's shout out our boy Zippy again, out sponsoring himself over with the Rumble Rants. And of course, every donation gets a treat for my co-host Morty. Thank you. We are now up to $4, guys. We can get to 50. Where are my heavy hitters? Zippy's carrying the whole thing on his back right now. Thank you so very, very much, sir.
Introduce you to another area of philosophy and another one. So you've just got to pick somewhere to start. You've just got to find something that you find interesting and captivating and get on with reading it.
Yeah, one of the great things about university too is you have like a multi-$1,000 thing hanging over your head. I mean, there's intrinsic motivation being in university. Your teacher assigns you utilitarianism, you have to stick with it. And to me, that's why I would say pick something that you're really fascinated by. And I would agree with everything you're saying. Like the biggest thing for me is to remain patient, remain humble, know that this is going to be difficult if you're doing it right, but to make it a little bit easier on you to stick with it, pick something that you're truly fascinated in. There's plenty of stuff out there. You don't have to study something boring if it's boring to you. There's just too much out there to waste your time doing that at first.
And don't get overwhelmed with the amount of different kinds of philosophy that there are like in front of you. I mean, the reality of the situation is you could sit down with somebody doing a PhD in Aristotelian thought. That's Aristotle, Aristotelian, right? And this person could have studied in more depth than you could possibly hope to ever understand the philosophy of Aristotle. And
get those 10,000 hours in. That makes you an expert, right?
They will just wax lyrical. They'll speak beautifully. They'll answer any objection. They've just got such an amazing knowledge. And maybe of some of the surrounding philosophers, they'll know about Plato. You know, they might know a bit about the history of Alexander the Great, who Aristotle tutored. You know, they might know. But then if you say something,
so maybe gaming is a better example then, because there are certain. I mean, I again, as a non-gamer, as much as a non-computer builder, I'm sure there's games that are easier than other games, and but there's no like this is the first game that you should play. And then you play that game, and then you know it's not linear, and so that may be that way. But my point in bringing that up was to say that there is a blueprint. And unlike computer building, it's not very linear. So as Alex said, just start wherever you want to start.
Alexander the Great, who Aristotle tutored, you know, they might know. Yeah. But then if you say something like, you might bring up Wittgenstein, who I mentioned earlier, and they might look you dead in the eye and say, I've never read a word of Wittgenstein. I have absolutely no idea about anything to do with this philosophy, right? And it's extraordinary because you think, but you're this great philosopher. You've got a PhD in philosophy, but it's like going to a molecular biologist and expecting them to be able to tell you how to put an aeroplane together, right? It's a different kind of science, and it doesn't matter if you've got a PhD. You're never going to know all of these areas. Right. So whatever it is that ends up captivating you, you're probably going to go down that rabbit hole, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, now I've been reading philosophy for a few weeks, a few months, maybe a year, and I still haven't gotten around to reading Nietzsche. You know,
shout out to Barton's Outdoor. Welcome to the party.
You know what? It doesn't matter as long as you're reading what's interesting to you, and as long as you know more today than you did yesterday about something interesting and important in philosophy. It does not matter if you haven't ticked off one of the important names that you're sort of supposed to have read, because if you tried doing that and you did so unnaturally, you might end up getting bored and put off the whole philosophy enterprise altogether.
Hey, we got our boy Dietrich in the building. Welcome to the party. So listen, you button-mashing screen peekers. Any set of dedication will yield results, good or bad. The muscles will grow to accommodate. And you know, I don't know what this means, so I'm gonna assume this is for the chat. But welcome to the party.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I mean, on the other side of that, I don't know if you have the same policy, but I don't.
Nah, we're not doing that. Vam, relax. We're not doing that. We're not doing that.
You ever like to make people feel stupid for not being in the same place as me, for not having read as much as me? I think it's a mistake that activists make these days, and people that are even in philosophy, where they just think people should shut up and be quiet if they haven't read all the stuff that I've read. This stuff isn't accessible to everybody. It's actually pretty difficult to get into the more complex stuff. Though I guess that's why I'm here, is to try to make it a bit easier for the people that want to know about it. How do I get from zero to a good understanding in something like Aristotle, if that's what I wanted to do?
And again, the answer, just pick up a book.
So
yeah,
for sure.
So suppose somebody is listening to this and they feel inspired to learn, but they actually, okay, they've heard of some of the names that we've mentioned, but they don't really feel like there's an obvious place for them to start. They're not particularly captivated by anything. I mean, if somebody just said to you, I just want to get an idea of what philosophy is kind of about, right? Like just across the board. I don't know if I'm interested in ethics. I don't know if I'm interested in...
Just like Zippy said, let's shout out our boy Dylan Soup. Welcome to the party. And of course, we got our boy, the big baller, the fuck master general. Said Lao Tzu and Sun Tzu shouldn't be overlooked. Indeed, I agree. All right, let's get this out of the way here. Oh, God damn it. And of course, every donation comes with a treat for Morty, guys. And don't forget, we are trying to get him his new jar of peanut butter. If we get up to $50, that he is gonna love it. Thank you, thank you, thank you so very much. And of course, that makes you the new sponsor of the stream. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the party, the Funk Master General.
Right, like just across the board. I don't know if I'm interested in ethics. I don't know if I'm interested in philosophy of religion or whatever. Like, where can I go to just start learning something about philosophy for an introduction to give me an idea of what this is all about?
I will reiterate that I don't think it's where you should start, but if that's what somebody wanted to do, there's a few I can recommend. I think Nigel Warburton does a good job in his book, Philosophy, the Basics. It's very broad. It does not cover a lot of Christian thought. So I know there's Christian and also.
Okay. All right. There we go. There we go. So what did he say? Zippy, this is a good place.
Very broad.
I
think Nigel Warburton does a good job in his book, Philosophy, the Basics. It's very broad. It does not cover a lot of Christian thought. So I know there's Christian and also just religious listeners of your show. So it just all the cards on the table. I'm not sitting here trying to say these are the greatest books ever written. I'm saying, I mean, like, these are the ones I can recommend, honestly, as me, and I come from a set of biases too. So I'd say that one. I'd say if you want that's more going to be just going from, I mean, almost academically from one thing to the next conceptually. One that I really love, it's like $5 on Amazon, is Bertrand Russell's The Problems of Philosophy, where it's much more conversational. It's much more like real world scenarios. And I just think having such a legit philosopher go through and break down the complexity of every of these things that we think to be very simple.
Right. And so Bertrand Russell, he was maybe one of the first, like, not the first, but the first atheist that was, known for being an atheist. And I could be completely wrong about that, but at least the earliest that I know. And if you've ever heard of Russell's teapot, this was brought up to combat the idea that, well, you can't prove that God doesn't exist. Like, okay, but that's not how it works. And she's like, all right, well, there's a teapot circling or orbiting the sun, and it's right between Saturn and Jupiter. Prove it's not there. Oh, okay. It doesn't really work like that, does it? No, it doesn't. So shout out to him. So I wouldn't, Steven asked if I'm a Stoic. I wouldn't call myself a Stoic. I do think there is a lot of value in Stoicism, but I be getting passionate about shit, so definitely not. Definitely not. I would like to be more Stoic, but I can't claim that. Taylor said, Marcus Aurelius was a great start for me when I was younger for philosophy. Yeah, great. And then Mercy Jokes bringing up Machiavelli, the Prince. All these places, great places to start. There is, and it's not. Yes, there are going to be ones that are more dense than others. They're saying Bertrand Russell's more conversational, but again, it's just, if you just follow your instinct, you know what you know. You know what you like. You know what you if you pick something that you don't like, you'll see that you don't want it. Just start. I'm saying, good Lord, my brain has felt like mush all freaking day. I think I can barely think up a coherent sentence or question. That's all right. You just sit back, relax. I got this for you, brother. Zippy said, atheism girl on Twitter, half her replies calling her application of atheism dogmatic was saying I was a bad person. I mean, if you cannot comprehend your own flaws, you're a damn commie. Commies do not want to have a conversation. Fair enough. So Steven says Bertrand Russell wasn't the first, but he was a popularizer of atheism and agnosticism for sure. So yeah, I'm going to undercut that. There's definitely other people who were public about their atheism, but I think in terms of popularizing this notion of not just not believing, but outwardly being actively rejecting the notion that we have to believe in a God. Shout out to Mikhail. Welcome to the party. So what do I think of Pascal's wager? I hate it. So if you're not familiar, Pascal's wager is basically a type of thinking that actually, oh shit, what did I do? Oh Jesus. Let's do it this way. I like this one better. Bring up an image for you here. So it's always so tiny. So this is Pascal's wager here. And so basically what he's if you believe in God and there is a God, well, you're good. You got eternal joy. If you believe in God and there's no God, well, nothing happens. If you don't believe in God and there's a God, well, that's not going to work out for you. But if you believe there's no God and there is no God, well, nothing happens. So it stands to reason that if you could choose this, that you would choose to believe in God because you have nothing to lose. Whereas by not believing in God, then you might be right, you might be wrong, but you're risking the eternal suffering. The problem with this is that is not how belief works. You cannot choose to believe anything. That's what makes it a belief. And so those who are saying that they choose to believe in God don't actually believe in God. Now, I do believe that you could convince yourself of something over time, but I feel like, especially if you are actively in, I'm just doing this just in case. I think the God of the Bible would see through that and be like, I don't really think you're following the. It seems like you're trying to cheat here. So and I would agree. Welcome to the party. Taylor says, quote, "No man has the right to be an amateur in the matter of physical training. It is a shame for a man to grow old without seeing the beauty and strength of which his body is capable." Plato, word up. Yeah. Are you calling me out? Are you calling me out? You telling me I need to get in the gym? God damn. Be a little nicer. I'm just kidding. All right, let's dive back in here.
Go through and break down the complexity of every of these things that we think to be very simple by default. I enjoy that one. I reread it every few years just because I like Russell. The other one, if you're a total beginner, I'd say Sophie's World. I know it's ironic, but it's like I didn't read it when I was a very beginner in philosophy, but I did read it on a plane one time, and I think that it's good. I don't know what it feels like for that book to hit you and teach you about what's going on in philosophy, but it's more fictional. It's about a girl that goes around and just learns about philosophy through things that are happening to her. And so it's very accessible to people that are just getting into it. I've heard it's really useful for people. So that's one I'd recommend. It's highly rated too. So those are the three I'd recommend.
Sure. So those are books for broad overview philosophy introductions. But you said that this isn't where you would point people.
No.
So where would you point somebody who said they wanted to start reading philosophy? I want some books. The person listening to the show right now is like, I want to go on Amazon. I want to order some books. I want to read something. All
right. So whatever he says, this I want you to all have been finished reading this by the next stream.
Learn about philosophy. What should I do?
I would, again, pick something that you're interested in. Just hypothetically, let's say that that's Nietzsche, right? Like, where I would always start is with secondary sources. The reason why is because, like our good friend Alex O'Connor here.
Taylor, are you sure you want to go down this road? Are you sure you want to go down this road? Because if you're going to make that claim, then it begs the question, or it raises the question, how do you know that?
When you're in a university setting, you not only have the lectures that you go to, which are more interpretive, it's more context, it's more explaining the ideas. And
Stephanie, you cannot do that. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're saying. And if you're spamming things that I can't understand, I don't know if you're saying things that are not allowed to be in the chat. So I'm going to give you another timeout. And then if you keep doing it, then I'm going to have to ban you.
Telling you everything you need to know about reading them. And then there's the assigned reading where you actually engage with the primary text that the author's writing. And I think that you need to do both in order to get the most out of philosophy, even if you're not in university. And so the best comparison I can give to a lecture, I mean, there are literal lectures on YouTube that you can watch of big university professors giving lectures. I'd probably...
That's another good place to start, is just looking up philosophy lectures. Like, let's see what comes up. If we search on YouTube, philosophy lecture. Philosophy lecture. Let's just see what comes up. So we got a whole a playlist here from University of Oxford. A full playlist here from Lecture Me Please. There's a whole bunch of stuff here. Of course, you'll eventually find Jordan Peterson stuff. I mean, there you go. There you go. It is never ending. I have to know what this is. Wait a minute.
Men dressing well takes themselves seriously, helps other people take them seriously. Yeah,
well, there's also some, like, you want to look like a two-bit slob? What are you announcing your moral superiority? I don't give a damn.
Yeah.
That's your announcement? I'm above it all. Really? That's why you're dressed in tracksuit, because you're above it all.
And Crocs.
Yeah, you really look above it all, buddy.
Yeah.
So no, and I think the tide will turn in that regard, because we've taken idiot casual to its ultimate degree, and so the aristocrats will start dressing again, and then it'll...
Okay, I'm sorry. I just needed to know what is... okay, I guess he has a take against tracksuits. Golden said, oh man, all y'all book reading smarty pants. Man, I'm just an uncultured player, but I have to rely on video essays and audiobooks. Hey, whatever gets you there. Whatever gets you there. Lectures are nice too. Or I'm not. You guys can have that conversation. I'm not derailing with that. Yeah, right. All right.
You're not in university. And so the best comparison I can give to a lecture, I mean, there are literal lectures on YouTube that you can watch of big university professors giving lectures. I would I'd probably recommend those. The other part of this is that there's resources in every type of thing. There's text resources, video resources, audio resources, and you can do whichever one is best to you. But anyway, to get to the actual process here, if it's Nietzsche, I always tell people to go to the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy first. If you're a total beginner in something, it's a free resource. It's online. It'll look a little bit like Wikipedia, but it's not. It's actually peer-reviewed to an extent. It's edited. It's updated pretty regularly. It's written usually by somebody that is in academia, that is involved in the conversation that's going on in this field. They understand the state of the literature right now. And it's designed to try to make it accessible to people as much as possible. There's also, the most important thing is that there's a bibliography at the bottom.
Yes.
All sorts of books that they cite.
So like he said before, go to those who inspire you.
These ideas are going to come from. And what I've done and what I've told other people to do in the past is, if you're a total beginner to something like Nietzsche, you just go to Amazon or to Goodreads and just type in Nietzsche. And
if anybody can answer this question, I'll send you something. I don't know. You win. But does anybody know the right answer to this question? There is a right answer.
Filter for the secondary sources, the ones not written by the author himself, Nietzsche. It's not written by Nietzsche. It's written by like Walter Kaufmann is a name. And
agreed. Actually, let's make this a poll because I've been meaning to kind of do that. And like, do people count audiobooks as books? And if you say, well, I'm not going to give my opinion yet, but that's a good one.
Nietzsche, and filter for the secondary sources, the ones not written by the author himself, Nietzsche. It's not written by Nietzsche. It's written by like Walter Kaufmann is a name. And you find people that are highly rated in that world, and then you copy and paste their names into Stanford. You just go to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy on the Nietzsche page, Control F, put in Walter Kaufmann up there, and see how many times he's annotated in the bibliography down there. It should give you a decent idea of whether this is a thinker that is still involved in the current discussion or whether this is a totally outdated source. It'll give you an idea of how relevant they are to the discussion that's going on. You can also do this on Google Scholar, which is also free, to see how many times they've been cited by academic sources, although it's uncommon for.
There you go. So between Google and what did he say, Stanford, that's already two free resources. Not to mention, Peter Boghossian has done full streams where he just goes, and maybe I should steal this, but goes to ChatGPT and will have a debate with ChatGPT about whatever philosophical topic. And there's so many inroads. There's so many inroads that it's really there's no excuse not to be able to think in the way that maybe not the smartest person, but the smartest among us. You should be able to think just like them. Taylor said, I think it's a book. You're still learning the same material. It just allows others who don't like reading to be able to enjoy books. Great. Comtech said, isn't the right answer to the question something like ask them both if they're a liar? You only get one question, so you're close, but you only get one question. One always lies and one always tells the truth. Yeah, you forgot that mercy joke. So you only get one. You can only ask them one question. Collectively. Actually, shit. Do I remember this now? I had it. I just watched it in a show the other day, and I forgot. I think no. I got it. Okay. Zippy said humans are finite, thus flawed and limited. So anything we think we know of the infinite is moot. It's a catch-22, which is why dogma is so bad. And look at that, tied to a Rumble rant. Thank you so very, very much. Getting us closer to that peanut butter jar. But first, let's get Morty his yummy treat. Thank you so very, very much, Zippy the Strange.
Which is also free, to see how many times they've been cited by academic sources, although it's uncommon for secondary sources to be cited like that. Not impossible, though. That's the real tactic that I would do, is a multiple layered vetting process of going to Amazon or Goodreads, finding what it seems good, and then contrasting that against how many times they're mentioned on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy page.
Yeah.
If you're looking for a book, that would be my process for trying to find something good.
I'm so glad you mentioned the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I mean, that is just such a phenomenal resource. You know, it's written by people. It's going to have its flaws and its faults, but as a resource, it is unbelievable that it's free. It's unbelievable that it's so broad. There's also the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, which is sort of another version of the same thing. So even then, like starting with Nietzsche, for example, go to the SEP, the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, entry for Nietzsche, read it. Maybe also, if you want to read the Internet Encyclopedia of Philosophy, they've probably got an entry on Nietzsche as well.Maybe they'll have entries on the texts instead. I'm not sure, but you know.
So Gonzak has a fantastic point here. Said, I don't know. Humans have listened to stories much longer than reading or writing. I think I'm just someone who memorizes more from listening. I'm going to go with that. I mean, obviously that's true. And 80% of you agree that, consuming the information is consuming the information. And especially if, I think like in the 90s, speed reading was a big thing. You'd be able to, and, the idea is that, if you can consume information faster, you can consume more information overall, which is why, people like me who can watch at 2x, like, let's just put this at 2x. We'll go back a little bit. We're at what? 48:34. We'll go back 1 minute. I'll put this at 2 times speed and see if you can keep up with what we just listened to. If we just listen to this, can you keep up with this?
That I would do is a multiple layered vetting process of going to Amazon or Goodreads, finding what it seems good, and then contrasting that against how many times they're mentioned on the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy page. If you're looking for a book, that would be my process for trying to find something good.
I'm so glad you mentioned the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. I mean, that is just such a phenomenal resource. You know,
that is how I would normally listen to,
like I said, I'm not sure, but
whatever. But not everybody can do that. And so if you train yourself, this is a shout out to Zippy again for this great plugin where you can adjust the speed of any video. Like obviously, YouTube already lets you do that, but you go from normal speed to 1.25. Maybe that's too big of a jump. So this I don't know why I put this. We're listening to at 1.1 speed, and I bet you a bunch of you didn't even notice. And so you listen to 1.1 until you don't notice it. Okay, if you don't notice it, bump it up to 1.2, 1.25, and so on and so on and so on, and train yourself to be able to consume more information. Not just if it's like flying at you and you're not consuming it. That's not helpful. If you're not encoding the information, that's not helpful. But if you are, then you can listen to 10 hours worth of information in a single day. And especially like if you could put headphones in at work, like think how much information you can, jam into your noggin every single day while getting paid for it. So I definitely think, audiobooks are the one. And shout out to Stephen Colbert Cheese said, ask if the other door is truthful to either one. So if the liar says yes, then they're they're lying, and if the one that's truthful is truthful, then you are right. So you only get one question. You just ask them, is the other door the one? Or the other door, whatever the case may be. Good job. Gomsek said 2x is so useful. It's the only way I was able to blat through all of my insurance training programs. Yep. Goodread. Is that another? That's another website for books, right? Is that what Goodread is? I've heard it, but I don't think I'm familiar with it. Mercy Joe said, with an audiobook, you can still retain the text, but to read a book is to actually read a book. To turn the pages and smell the paper, crack the spine, and look at the script and internalize it. It's an experience. Just my opinion. Sure, but do you need the right? Like, how much ink are you smelling? No, I agree that there's definitely people who prefer, like Taylor's saying, I love owning physical copies of books. Damn it! Now I hit the wrong button. Stupid. There's definitely reasons why people would want physical copies. The question is, does it not count because of your preference for liking the physical turning of the page and the smell of the book and the feeling? Does that make you have a better understanding of the book than somebody else who may learn better audibly because they're not they have no tactile aspect? And I mean, I would say no. Hunkuter said, let you read any Nietzsche? Dude was wild indeed. Yes. And I think that is for a lot of people, that's where they stop. They get to they start learning all this stuff, and they realize that, like, okay, the way your worldview is it can be very malleable. And like what you thought was so concrete didn't necessarily have to be. You get to the point of like, okay, well, there's no real inherent purpose to the universe and nothing matters. And that's a very downing kind of message when you first hear it. But then it's like, oh, wait a minute. So like, I can just have any purpose that I want? That sounds awesome. And that brings you into absurdism, where there's no rules to anything. Of course, you want to live in regardless of your philosophy, you want to live in a society where people respect each other and so on and so forth. But you realize that there's no point to any of this. It just is what it is, and you have fun when you can have fun, and when shit sucks, but you get over it and you go to the next thing, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I love the existentialism to absurdism pipeline. I love it. All right, let's dive back in here.
Yeah, of philosophy. They've probably got an entry on Nietzsche as well. Maybe they'll have entries on the texts instead. I'm not sure. But, if you just read and read properly, as if you were reading a book, maybe like underline, annotate, whatever, like try to remember what you read. If you just read the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy entries. So
here's what you do. You take a picture of an empty bookcase, right? You get a bookcase. Then every time you finish an audiobook, you take out the book from the library and you put it in a spot. You take a picture, and then you just superimpose each one, and then you got a full bookcase. And it's like, did you read all those books? Like, yeah, I did. Technically.
Whatever, like try to remember what you read. If you just read the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy entries, if you read the entry on Nietzsche, and you read the entry on Augustine, and you read the entry on, emotivism, if that's all you read, you would still probably have a better understanding of those topics and those thinkers than like 90% of the people that you come across. It is a wonderful, wonderful resource, and I'm so glad you mentioned it. But this idea of sort of, if you want to go a bit deeper, cross-checking the secondary authors with how many times they're referenced, I think is a genius way to figure out how.
I definitely couldn't name different types of nihilism, but I definitely see it as much more complex than, there's no use, so there's no point, I don't care about anything. Like that's the pop philosophy version of it. But so it's passive versus active nihilism is quite a difference. So yeah, I didn't remember the names, but yes, definitely. Like you said, most people think that they hear Nietzsche or they hear nihilism or existentialism or these words, and just like, oh, so you think that nothing matters and everything is just like no. That's you're using your Christian, which is also a philosophy, worldview, and applying it to a different philosophy. I mean, most people today, not that you have to do that in order to see it as being a doomer. Mercy Choke said, like I said, you can retain the contents with an audiobook. The question was, does that count as reading a book? Fair enough. I submit that it doesn't. To read is an adverb, an action that encompasses the experience. All right, fair enough. Dilly to that. I did indeed say, does it count as reading a book? And though my point was, do you still get the information? You are right. And I am wrong.
The secondary authors with how many times they're referenced, I think, is a genius way to figure out how relevant those commentaries are.
Thank you. It also goes the other way to include people in this that are watching that go to Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy, and it's too deep for them. It's too dense, which it varies from article to article. The one on Nietzsche may be totally accessible. Other ones may be more technical. If it is, there's this whole other area over here of actual Wikipedia and of blogs and of Reddit posts and of videos on YouTube of people just doing summaries and of comment sections, just engaging with the concepts there. The only thing I'd say is just proceed with caution. It's like there's this law that I have where like you proportion the amount of faith you have to whatever you're reading to the credibility of the source, or how long you've been looking into this source, or how much the source knows. It's actually kind of similar to in real life. If somebody just like yells at you on the side of the road that they like insult you, or a person that doesn't know you just says something bad about you, you don't really put much weight on it because they don't have much information about you. They don't, you proportion the amount of weight you put on it to how much information they have. If I'm going through the comments section, you literally don't even know if this is like a Nobel laureate or a person like literally on meth right now typing this, and I would just proportion the amount that this is the gospel truth about this subject as you're going through those. But there's certainly value to just familiarizing yourself with the whole discussion before even going to the Stanford Encyclopedia. The key is patience and humility.
Patience and humility. Maybe you don't know shit. Maybe you don't know shit, but that's okay, because you can learn, and you don't need to know everything, but maybe you don't know shit.
I think, and just sitting in that discomfort, but just knowing that progress is happening when it's happening, and then you know, take your time, move up from there to the primary text if that's eventually where you want to go.
That's true. It's also a good way of trying to find out what you're interested in. If you really don't know, you know, try listen to Philosophize This, right? Listen to your podcast, go from the beginning, go from the oldest, look at the newest, whatever. It doesn't matter. Just listen to scroll through. There's an episode on Boethius.
Yeah, and as I was saying before, I did because I was getting you know, from getting out of college, I was very philosophy minded and you know, religious minded in terms of my atheism and philosophy and stuff like that. But you know, as I got further away from college, then you know, my interest in politics picked up. And so I kind of fell more away from being active in you know, challenging myself and reading new philosophy and stuff like that. But yeah, it's definitely something that I would never trade, because it sticks with you. You know, even if I don't remember, you know, active versus passive nihilism, those ideas are still there. And so it's something that you're not likely to completely lose. You know, you're going to lose the edges, but the meat of anybody's idea. And again, of all that stuff that we talk about with Rene Descartes, and I think therefore I am. That's what it is boiled down. Like, that's the conclusion. The conclusion is that you can't be sure that anything exists except for yourself. It is, you have to operate on the assumption that it is very possible that everything you know doesn't exist. Everything you know could be a false projection by an evil god. You don't know that. Steven says, anyone using the term nihilism has to presume most listeners only hear a doomer take. Yep. Yeah, that's why I try to when I have brought it up to try to you know, expound on it a little bit. It says, Alex Wagner is perhaps the most hardcore nihilist academic around. Fair enough. She said, Nobel laureate or tweaker? Who's to say? Both, perhaps. Shit happens. Yep. I mean, this is definitely an area where you're not really sure. You're not really sure, because we're talking about very out there ideas. And some people's out there ideas are like, oh, damn. And some people's ideas are like, I don't think so, bro. I don't think so. Shout out to Terrence Howard.
At the newest, whatever, it doesn't matter. Just listen to scroll through. There's an episode on Boethius. Who's that? I think I've heard that name. You listen to it for 5 minutes. Are you bored? Are you captivated? If you're bored, skip to the next one. Maybe it's Descartes. Maybe it's Hume. Maybe it's Epicurus. And once you've listened for 5 minutes and thought, you know what, actually, I'm kind of interested in this. Even if you don't then want to listen to the rest of that podcast, you now know that Epicurus is someone that you're going to be interested in looking at. So you can go to the SEP and look for Epicurus, right? And that will take, you know, maybe 20 minutes of your time if it takes you 4 tries to get to something that you find interesting.
20 minutes. Guys, we've been here for almost 2 hours. You could have tried and failed to learn to get into philosophy 4 times, 5 times, and still have gotten into philosophy in this time. I'm very, very glad that you're here now watching this instead. But I'm just saying, 20 minutes, 20 minutes.
Be 20 minutes of your time if it takes you 4 tries to get to something that you find interesting. I mean, I've just gone to the Stanford Encyclopedia. If you go to the front page, there's a table of contents, and you can scroll, and it's in alphabetical order. This absolutely mammoth list of all kinds of topics. It's either names, like Hobbes or Buddha, just appears, you know, under B. But also there's an entry on identity politics, impartiality, impossible worlds, you know, individualism, and this is obviously just information. What is information? These are areas of philosophy that you might not have even considered. If you're reading through this, just scroll through it at random, and then you see information. You're like, gosh, the philosophy of information. That sounds really interesting, and you click on it and just read. and just see where it takes you.
Right.
Because a bit.
Hey, let's shout out our boy Steven here. I said, even if you don't dig deeper into philosophy, I think you're all nice people. They are all nice people, and so are you. Dilly to that. See, I know we're building something here. We're building something here, guys. Thank you for being here, Steven.
That sounds really interesting, and you click on it and just read and just see where it takes you.
Right.
Because a bit like when you're on Wikipedia, and it's not hyperlinked in the same way, but you might open this page and it will say that it's a subset of this kind of philosophy, and you click on that and you click on that, and you end up just going down this hole, and you spend an hour doing that every single day. Like, yeah, you basically be a philosopher in no time, I think.
I mean, certainly much more educated than the average person or people that haven't put in that work. Yeah, for sure. I still think I just have a tremendous amount of respect for the people that go even deeper than that, where they start to engage with the arguments more, and they start to. Anyway, yeah, 100% that is better than you could be, for sure.
Steven says, 500 years ago, when nice was first used in English, it meant foolish or stupid. This is not surprising as it may seem, since it came through early French from Latin necius, meaning ignorant. By the 16th century, the sense of being very particular or finicky had developed. Interesting. That's very nice. That's very nice. Do we get another one here? Hey, shout out to our boy Zippy the Strange. Oh my God. What are you going by these days? Zippy the Assembly. That's you. Let's go. Thank you for the Rumble rant. Said the nip. I don't know what that means, but I appreciate it. Gotcha. Thank you. We are up to $16. Let's get Morty a new jar of peanut. Look how empty that shit is. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, I use peanut butter for my shakes, and then when I can't, use any more, then I give it to him. But he's got this one, but you can tell he's like, what is this bullshit? He's like, this is done, bro. Like, what is that? What is that? It's like, fuck you. What are you trying to do to me? He needs a new one. It's right here. But we need that $50. $50. We can do it. Let's ride.
Yeah, 100% that is better than you could be, for sure. And yeah, if on the note of what you were saying, if you listen to episodes of the show and you don't like that thinker, move on to the next one. If you listen to like 10 episodes of my show and you don't like any of them, it's probably just me. Don't stop.
It's all quite nice. It is all quite nice. I agree. Mercy Choke said, intellectual rigidity is not conducive to learning. That's for sure. Agreed.
If you listen to like 10 episodes of my show and you don't like any of them, it's probably just me. Don't stop there. Don't like judge philosophy because you don't like me. Maybe I'm boring. Go.
Actually, let me put out that same caveat. Because of the fact that, I try to make this show and kind of, entry level into politics as opposed to philosophy. If you don't like me, try another channel. Don't just say politics sucks. Maybe you just don't like me. A lot of people don't.
Probably just me. Don't stop there. Don't like judge philosophy because you don't like me. Maybe I'm boring. Go to another philosophy podcast. Go to another set of videos. I mean, maybe I'm sure just in the same way form and content and art are often interlinked in ways, and to try to separate the two is just, I mean, maybe you just receive philosophy better from conversations like what Alex O'Connor's doing on YouTube, and whatever is getting,
but it's not reading a book,
you to that place where it's causing you to really sit and engage with, again, the conceptual engineering of your view of the world. If you're doing that again for an hour a day, whatever that takes, I think you're winning as a person.
So here's a question that I think maybe people might have sort of come across, and it will be relevant to getting into philosophy. A lot of people like to separate philosophy into two different approaches, and they're generally called the analytic philosophy approach and the continental philosophy approach. What is the difference between analytic and continental philosophy?
Right. Well, at the beginning of the 20th century, there was a big divide in philosophy where people,
and this goes right to what Stephen was saying specifically about nihilism, that there's levels to this shit. Exactly. Politics sucks. It is horrible, awful. Remember back in the day when we didn't have to care about politics because people were basically taking care of it? Me neither. But we thought it was that way, and we can move back in that direction.
Known as the logical positivists.
I don't know what he just
big
said.
Divide in philosophy.
Oh, right.
People known as the logical positivists believed that where have we gone? Like we're facing a lot of problems post-Enlightenment with the ideas and how they're actually playing out into the world. And the thinking is maybe philosophy shouldn't be something that talks about metaphysics anymore, that metaphysics always by default is the realm of unverifiable speculation, that anybody trying to construct a vast system of philosophy that's all based on values that they've universalized at the bottom of it, and the whole process of metaphysics into epistemology, into ethics, into politics, that is a lost cause, and that maybe philosophy should be less ambitious and try to focus on the things that we can know, a priori and a posteriori facts about the world, things that can be verified by empirically observing them, and things that are truthful just by virtue of their definitions. All triangles have three sides, all bachelors are unmarried, that sort of thing.
I think I am far from a philosopher. Both of those gentlemen will know a lot more than I do, but that seems to be not a good idea, because if you think about the edges of where like mathematics and like physics and stuff like that, there needs to be an element of philosophy in there, because you have to know what questions to ask. And so if you understand, like, okay, we got gravity, this thing goes down, got it. But like when you get to the stuff that I don't even know what it is, and then you get you learn about you're learning about the quantum mechanics and stuff like that. You have to be able to have a philosophical mindset in order to see where it goes. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense. But either way, shout out to our boy, the Funk Master General. Said I am nice man with happy thoughts all the time. I wish. Lucky man. And of course, let's give Morty a big, nice treat of air. Yummy, yummy, yummy. Gets us a little bit closer to the peanut butter. And of course, my man is out sponsoring himself. Thank you so very, very much.
Virtue, things that can be verified by empirically observing them, and things that are truthful just by virtue of their definitions. All triangles have three sides, all bachelors are unmarried, that sort of thing. In the most general sense, this is a separation in the ways that philosophers are thinking about their work. In terms of there being a clear-cut divide between continental and analytic, it's an ongoing debate as to whether that's
almost halfway there, guys. Almost halfway there. We can do it. Get Morty some more peanut butter. Let's do it.
Even an accurate way of describing it. I think it's helpful when just looking at the history of philosophy and trying to understand it. But I think just like with British empiricists and continental rationalists, it's like there's overlap. It's not like either one of them were purely doing one side or the other. It's not that clean cut. I'd be interested to hear what you would say is the origins of the continental analytic divide.
Well, my understanding of the difference is that the analytic philosophy approach is a sort of mathematized philosophy. It's formal logic. It's if P, then Q, P, therefore Q. Very sort of rational, very left-brained. If you've listened to last week's, I believe, episode with Ian McGilchrist.
This is similar to when I'm having, shout out to Chester. This is usually where it comes out when I'm talking to Chester, and we'll be having a conversation, and he'll say something, and then he'll say something else. And so I'll make a conclusion from that. And he'll be like, well, that's not what I said. It's like, well, hold on. If A equals B and B equals C, then A must equal C. You cannot say that A equals B and then B equals C and then disagree with me when I say, so you're saying A equals C. If A equals B and B equals C, then they're all the same. So you can't tell me that you're not saying that A equals C, even if you didn't say those words. And again, you put it; those are variables, just like in algebra. And that's kind of what they're talking about. So you probably heard me talk about it in that context before.
And if you've listened to last week's, I believe, episode with Ian McGilchrist, you might know what I'm talking about there. A sort of approach that tries to capture and systematize philosophy, right? And so you get the introduction of formal logic, people taking philosophical ideas and trying to make them very specific, trying to design them almost as if you could put them into a calculator. And that's where you get the P's and the Q's and the conditionals and the arrows and the formal logic symbolism and all of that kind of stuff.
I think if you're looking to learn about philosophy, not learn the actual what do the philosophers think, but how to do this this type of formological stuff. I think that's a good place to start in. Stephen, help me out. What do they call this? The is it just? I forget how you characterize this type of philosophy versus the something that's not as formal. You know what I'm talking about? But either way, learning to put conversations into a formula and be like, okay, so you said this, so this is your first premise, and then your second premise, and the third premise, and your conclusion. When you can, oh, that's not the button. No, but the different time. So like when we're talking about A equals B, B equals C, so A equals C, versus the ideas of nihilism. Those are two different types. And I remember I mean, maybe this is just the way that I learned it, and it was, separated in this way. Yeah, okay. So maybe it is formal versus informal logic. Yeah, I think it is. Yeah. So so yeah, that A plus B stuff is formal logic, whereas more general topics that we're going to talk about are going to be informal logic. So if you want to learn how to apply the thoughts of other people and yourself to your argumentation specifically, then the formal logic of creating a syllogism and understanding premises and what is a sound argument versus a valid argument, those kinds of things, that's a good place to start. But that's formal logic is just another form of math, and instead of using numbers, you're using concepts. And I think that's a very, very, very powerful tool. Because then, you have formal and informal fallacies. So things like, a straw man would be an informal fallacy. But like just not, if your argument isn't logical, then you're much better at hearing the argument and then putting that into your mind into, okay, what is in this situation? What is A? What does it equal C? A plus C equal, whatever the come on, my pretty face. There you go. Getting that all in order. That's a great place to, but that has more to do again with the application of these philosophical concepts, and that's a different thing than understanding the informal the informal logic of a lot of philosophers and just what they think about the world. Steven said, formal logic only goes so far, since most problems we face in life aren't that formalizable. Yeah. But again, definitely helpful. Thank you for the assist, Steven.
And the arrows and the formal logic symbolism and all of that kind of stuff. And that's great in one sense, because it allows you, as I say, to systematize. It allows you to really test ideas and see if they're like logically hold up, right? But there's also this kind of philosophy that seems like you can't capture it in that kind of language. And continental is the name given to it because a lot of it comes from like continental Europe. But if you read like a philosophical novel, so for example, if you read The Outsider or The Stranger by Albert Camus, it's just a story. It's a story of a man. I won't tell you what happens because I don't want to spoil it, but it's a novel, and it's a philosophical novel. Like it contains philosophical
themes. 40 years ago, man.
One of my pet peeves is people spoiling like movies and books and things, partly just because they assume that people already know, because like, you're quite right, people might already know what happens, but it's not so embedded into the culture that people know what happens here. And on the off chance,
put one in the chat if you know what he is trying to not spoil. I think that makes his point.
That like one person listening like doesn't know, I'm just not going to mention it. So many people, it's like what does it serve, unless you really have to make a point. I don't need to do it to make my point here. What does it serve to like tell someone or mention what happens in a book, mention if somebody dies or if some relationship happens or something, like it just, I don't know. It's always been one of my pet peeves. I remember I was holding a book once again. I won't tell you which one. I was holding this huge novel, right? And I was stood on the staircase of my old house with my housemates, and my housemate had some of his friends come over. And this guy who I'd never met before, like, looks at me holding this book and he goes, "Oh, cool. I read that before." I was like, "Oh yeah, did you like it?" And he goes, "Yeah, it was great. Oh, has X character died yet?" And
bruh, don't be that person. Don't be that person. And I'm not talking about philosophy, but TV, music. Well, music can't really spoil, but movies, stuff like that. Like House of Dragon just came out today. There's a big spoiler. Don't spoil it for people. Let people enjoy things. Now, week goes by. current things. It's like, hey, if you didn't see it, you don't care. But first day, like, come on. Steven said, if you want a philosopher who can help you with procrastination, try William James. Okay. Why should we try William James? Educate me, please.
And he goes, yeah, it was great. Oh, has, X character died yet? And I was just like, man, for goodness sake. And I was so annoyed. Now, in fairness to him, the fact
he's so English, for goodness sake,
that this character dies was written on the blurb. But the fact that I'd managed to somehow miss that and not realize that, because I'd literally just begun reading it, was enough to make me realize that, as obvious as it may seem, I'm not going to spoil it. So you might read.
Well, I'm
Albert
all for more
Camus.
consideration in the world. Yeah.
You might read Albert Camus' philosophical novel, The Outsider. And if I asked you to put it into logical form, if I asked you to take the insights that you thought you got from that novel, you put it down, you think, wow, that really sort of challenged my worldview. I was, well, put it into formal logic. Give me an if P then Q kind of formulation. It's
not going to work.
Doesn't work. It seems totally inappropriate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so this kind of philosophy, this continental philosophy, is much more about narrative, much more about sort of poetry. It's much more right-brained, as it were, again in the sort of hemispheric language. And I don't know about the sort of historical divide exactly, but in terms of the approach today, I think that is what we're looking at. If somebody's doing analytic philosophy, they are trying to see if things logically follow, trying to point out logical fallacies, trying to construct syllogisms. A syllogism is just a sort of form of argument with premises and a conclusion. If they're doing continental philosophy, they're more likely to be reading a novel, telling a story, talking about sort of skirting around the edges, trying to get to meaning. So
yeah, Guamtech brings up an interesting point here about just the again, the way that we consume things, the way that we sorry Buzz, I didn't realize you want to come. Oh, I feel bad. Come here. I'll bring you back up. Come here. Here, I'll give you food. I know. I put you over there. I banished him while I went to pee. Anyway, but yeah, I think there's something. I agree. There's something about, especially with something like Game of Thrones or the MCU, where I don't really know the lore as much. That after I watch a Marvel movie or an episode of Game of Thrones, House of Dragon, whatever it is, I like to go and see the breakdown of like how it ties to the books and stuff. And they'll always put stuff near the end of the video where it's like, okay, well, this is what happens in the book. So if you don't want to hear it, then this is your spoiler warning. And I usually watch that stuff because I assume it's going to be different, but it also can help contextualize things. And so it definitely has its place. But in general, yeah, it's more about ruining it for somebody else. Texas, if spoilers are the orgasm, then the details are the foreplay that you get turned on in the first place. It's hard to bust a nut without a boner first. Speak for yourself. Steven said the more of the details of our daily life we can hand over to the effortless custody of automatism, the more our higher powers. Let's try that one again. The more our higher powers of mind will be set free for their own proper work. There is no more miserable human being than the one in whom nothing is habitual but indecision, and for whom the lighting of every cigar, the drinking of every cup, the time of rising and going to bed every day, and the beginning of every bit of work are subjects of express volitional deliberation. Damn. Say that 5 times fast. Procrastination is a matter of habit after all. Yeah, I am a bad procrastinator, but it also showed me, once I started this show, that like it is a habit, because maybe once or twice have I been late for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday show. Like when I do it randomly, I'm like, all right, give me like 10 minutes. Sometimes it'll take me 20 or whatever. But for the Monday, Wednesday, Friday show, when is the last time that I was not live at 8 o'clock exactly? Maybe I started early, by a few minutes, but by 8 p.m. 8 p.m. Eastern, every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, you will see me in this chair behind this camera. And, it's really, again, showed me that, yeah, you can do it if you care. And that you knowing that about myself has opened up other things. Like, okay, I know that I can do the things that I want to do if I put the will behind it. Mercy Choke said, by the way, I saw a full demon wearing robes and a goat mask at Whole Foods today. What? The states are getting wild this summer. Apparently, they've been wild, but yeah, I mean, this summer might top the charts, as it were.
Talking about sort of skirting around the edges, trying to get to meaning. So people like Albert Camus, Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialists, people like Dostoevsky and Leo Tolstoy, novelists, but thought to be sort of philosophers as well. These guys are your sort of, you know, continental philosophy type approach. Whereas on the analytical side, you have your Bertrand Russells. You have, it's quite difficult to map this on historically to older thinkers.
Right.
But you know, you've maybe a Wittgenstein. I'm not sure actually. I'm not sure about Wittgenstein, but I hope people will know what I'm talking about when I say the more systematized, mathematized approach to philosophy as opposed to the more narrative.
So thanks to Stephen, I think we do kind of all understand what he's saying, is that there's some that are more in that you know, P equals Q, or as I said, A equals B, B equals C, A equals C type thing, versus the more narrative types. Oh my goodness! Look who we got. He said he was lying last time. All right, that's all right. I don't care. You could pay me to lie. That's totally cool. My last chat was a bit of a lie, but now you're halfway to our goal. Hold on, Mortis. There we go. Oh, let's get the mic. I'm sorry, bud. I'm sorry. There it is. There you go. Thank you. I think that brings us up to what? $30, guys. We are more than halfway there. We are just $20 away. $20 away. You know how happy this little doggy will be with a fresh, I mean, not fresh, it's not a whole jar, but you know, a freshly finished jar of peanut butter. Thank you so very much, sir. Out sponsoring your goddamn self again. Thank you.
Say the more systematized, mathematized approach to philosophy as opposed to the more narrative and poetical.
Yeah, I like the way Jose Ortega y Gasset, very underrated philosopher, talks about the value of philosophy as being this thing that in this day and age, we have all these areas of specialization. And the scientists, my wife is a quantum physicist. She's a PhD in computational chemistry right now. So she is highly specialized. And she spends all of her time working on the friction between molecules and this type of density function theory thing with her team. And it's so specialized and so compartmentalized that people can make progress even when they're not like a super genius. I guess this is a bit of a tangent from what you were saying, but
so we'll get back to that in a second. So Steven said, do you get why probabilism is a superior approach to binary or black and white thinking? And absolutely. I mean, we can again bring it back to the politics of it. We can see when people are like, oh, you like good thing, then you good person. They like bad things, so they bad person. Like that, you can't operate like that. It doesn't fit. And they try to fit everything into these boxes of good or bad or oppressed or oppressor or whatever the dichotomy is. And it's always a false dichotomy. Even on the right. Oh, you got Jesus or you're a heathen? Maybe not, though. Maybe not. Humans indeed like to simplify. Yeah, the smartest people aren't all Bayesian, but all Bayesians are pretty damn smart. Zippy said, let the shrooms open thine third eye. See the world for what it is and become one with it. Like sunglasses from They Live. What? I don't get the last part, but definitely some psychedelics, some LSD, some DMT ain't gonna hurt nobody. I mean, not medical advice, but you know. Yes, humans love to oversimplify. Unfortunately, yep. There you go. All right. Did I say psilocybin? I don't think I said psilocybin. Did I say psilocybin? I don't think so. But either way, well, that's right. I love me some psilocybin.
Make progress even when they're not like a super genius. I guess this is a bit of a tangent from what you were saying, but what Jose Ortega y Gasset says is that the value of philosophy in this world where everybody is hyper specialized is the ability to see the forest for the trees. It's the ability to see the whole picture and to link together all of these disciplines that people don't really have the luxury of being able to link together if they're 100% focused on their specialization. I see that as a big part of what continental philosophy tries to do in today's day and age. Aside and also just help us set
up a movie night.
ask better questions about the problems that face us. So,
where analytic philosophers are studying the brushstrokes and the type of canvas and the pigment of the paint, the continental philosopher tries to understand it by stepping back and looking at the painting.
I think that's a good way to put it.
Interesting. Let's hear that one more time. The difference between the what is it, the continental and the analytical philosophers. Let's see.
It tries to do in today's day and age.
Yeah, let's hear that.
Aside, and also just help us ask better questions about the problems that face us.
So listen to these, a great description of two different types of thinking and two types of different types of philosophy.
Where analytic philosophers are studying the brushstrokes and the type of canvas and the pigment of the paint, the continental philosopher tries to understand it by stepping back and looking at the painting.
I think that's a good way to put it. Yeah.
And it's not actually, I mean, you can't say one of those is better than the other. In the case of a painting, it seems obvious that stepping back and looking is more appropriate, but it kind of depends what you're trying to do. Like if you're interested in what a painting is, where it came from, like what its like nature is, what it's made up of, then yeah, pull out the microscope. But if you're interested in the meaning of the painting, if you're interested in the intention of the artist, that kind of thing, then you need to take a step back. So it really depends on what your goal is.
Spot on. What is your goal? Are you trying to win arguments? Are you trying to learn about yourself? Are you trying to learn about the world? Are you trying to learn about God? It depends on what you're looking for.
So if your goal is to sort of break down and understand the world by trying to classify it and study it through a microscope, then analytic philosophy, there's the approach you should take. Whereas if you're more broadly just sort of looking for meaning and beauty and looking for the kind of truth that you won't find at the bottom of a microscope, then maybe continental philosophy is going to be more of interest to you. But again, you should be able to work this out just from thinking about what intuitively appeals to you.
And that's another intuitive. That's a good word that always fits in philosophy. It should be intuitive. Nothing in philosophy should be so far out there that once it's worked out, maybe again, we're talking about out there ideas, but once it's worked out and it's like, okay, I got this. And like, here's my conclusion. You really should be expecting something that, as I said earlier, like, okay, I mean, I never really thought about it like that, but that does make sense. I think I already had I think my brain was already ordered to think about it this way. I just hadn't heard it out loud and, or read it in black and white. And sometimes that's all it takes. So Gontek said, I guess that makes me a continental philosopher. The details are for the book readers. Hey, I'm definitely more of a continental philosopher, but I mean, the formal philosophy is just, especially in the position that I am, just chef's kiss to be able to take somebody's long and winding argument that doesn't really make a lot of sense and be able to pinpoint, okay, he's saying that and that, or that is that. And I can break it down. So you're saying that that's why you'll often hear me say, so you're saying, and then properly steelman what they're saying, because I can break it down and this long-winded thing into, okay, that's A, that's B, that's C, and that's X, or whatever it is what we're talking about. The details are for the book readers. Fucking nerds.
This out just from thinking about what intuitively appeals to you. I mean, like, are you more excited about reading a novel that when you put it down has made you change the way you see the world? Does that excite you? Or does it make you think, well, that's a bit stupid because that's just fiction. I don't care about fiction. I want to do like analysis, right?
So now we're even getting a little bit further about reading versus listening and fiction versus nonfiction. So if I'm going to read something, I much prefer, listen or physically read. I much prefer nonfiction to fiction. I cannot get through a novel to save my life. I don't know what it is, but whenever I'm reading something fictional, the whole time my brain's just going, what's the point? What's the point? What's the point? I don't know why. And so nonfiction works for me because it's like, okay, you're saying this, and then you're saying that, and then you're saying that, and then you're saying that. However, this is why, as soon as I make enough money to survive off of this channel and be able to quit my job, and I am going to be so in it because I don't care. I want to be able to make my pop culture channel where I can talk about, like I just watched the new episode of the new season of House of the Dragon, but I don't know if any of you saw it or care about it or have any connection to the Game of Thrones universe or any of that stuff. And so to be able to talk about this kind of stuff in that context of fictional worlds, if you've been here for a while, you remember that I when it came to Game of Thrones, I didn't watch most of the time. I binged the first 7 seasons before the 8th season came out. I know, but it was because I was just like, this fantasy bullshit, I don't care about that. But I realized that, through, saying that a number of times and missing out on a bunch of MCU movies and missing out on like Lost and just a lot that like, you can tell very real stories and bring very real aspects of the world and society and whatever into a fictional story. And sometimes it's easier when to make your point, because you can create the world. And so we were just talking, what was the movie we just watched? The Barbie movie. Shout out to the disciples in the Discord server. We just had a movie night recently, and we watched the Barbie movie. And I had a long thing about, there was one scene where they specifically took it out of the fictional world of Barbie and Ken into like, hey guys, we're making a movie that's supposed to be about the real world. And as soon as they said, it was just one word they said 2 or 3 times. As soon as they said it, my suspension of disbelief, my immersion was just shattered. And like, okay, now I can see that you're doing this, that. Whereas if they were trying to make the same point, but it wasn't so on the nose, then I'd be able to appreciate it for what it is instead of what it's trying to be. And because representation and symbolism doesn't have to be as accurate as the type of the types of things with like the more logical philosophy format. And so all this stuff comes into play. And it's all very personal. Is there things about how you think and how others think that you want to be able to address and debunk and or verify? Or do you just want to be exposed to new ideas so that you can internalize them and pick from whatever works? And notice also that at no point has anybody said, this is the one. All those others, they get close and you're better, with another book than this book, but this is the one and only book. This is the highest of high. Notice that. Hey, my guy. Oh my goodness. With another $5 super chat. Said I need more Tolkien in my life. Indeed I do. Like y'all been saying for what? At least a month now. You can get me you're gonna make a movie night where we go through the Lord of the Rings trilogy. Never seen it. You said there was going to be a movie night where we go through the Star Wars trilogy. Never seen it. When you have immigrant parents and they don't get here until 1980, then there's a lot of 70s and 80s American pop culture that you just miss out on. But nothing yet. Do y'all thing. But shout out again to our boy, the Funk Master General out, sponsoring himself once again. Thank you so very much. What does that bring us to? That brings us to $35. That's only another $15, bro. Let's do this shit.
Well, that's a bit stupid because that's just fiction. I don't care about fiction. I want to do like analysis, right? Just from your initial reaction to what that sounds like should give you an indication of what kind of philosophy you're going to be more into.
Yeah, I think that's beautifully put.
Now, I suppose sort of wrapping up here, you're someone who has spent, as you say, like over a decade.
So we'll go into these before they get into that. Mercies for Tolkien. Word. Steven says continental philosophy is more abstract, which is more relatable to people when done well. Excuse me. Analytical philosophy is more formal, but human life doesn't always align with formal philosophy. Either can be unrelatable to average peeps, obviously. Yeah, that's plainly and painfully obvious. And hopefully we can change this a little bit. Yeah, I'm down. Like, I will dedicate an entire day to this. Like the Discord server, and especially the voice channels where we will be doing this. That is the major thing that you get with your membership. That's the major thing. Like, yeah, I try to do a member stream on YouTube every week, but you know, I can't always get to it. But you guys know that I'm there for hours and hours, and any time of the day you can reach me. You know, the free chat, I don't have the notifications on, but the disciple chat for the members, every single message, I'm getting a notification right here. So you got me 24/7. And I'm that's totally fine with me. That's what I'm looking for. That's what I'm looking for. Zippy say, you talking about something else? Okay. All right. Let's do it.
Someone who has spent, as you say, like over a decade going through various philosophers, philosophical thinkers, trying to sort of get to grips with what they think and sharing it with the world. Who do you think is the most underrated philosopher of all time?
Oh, Steven, I'm expecting you to have an answer to this one. I don't know a lot. I don't remember a lot of names. So I would only remember the ones that people talk about a lot. Because again, I studied it in college, and I read stuff and I kept up with that crash course philosophy, but it's a very basic level. I'm not a philosopher. Says most underrated VWO Quine. Is that short for something? Thomas Aquinas or something? I feel like that doesn't sound familiar. Huh? Is this what? All right. Are you gonna make me? You're gonna make me do a Google? Where am I? Whoa. Willard Van Orman Quine. Oh, alrighty. Let's see. What was his what's his main deal? Systematic attempt to understand science. Where am I? Am I big? Okay. A systematic attempt to understand science from within the resources of science itself. Interesting. Fair enough. Anybody else have a particular favorite underrated philosopher? Yes, Willard Van Orman Quine was an American philosopher and logician in the analytical tradition, recognized as a baller and one of the most influential philosophers of the 20th century. He served as the Edgar Pierce Chair of Philosophy at Harvard University from 1956 to 78. Well, shout out to him. Shout out to Willard. We appreciate you. I knew you'd have somebody for me, Stephen. I knew it.
Who do you think is the most underrated philosopher of all time?
Ooh, such a good question. And unexpected. You know, I'm very biased. I might say Simone Weil, because I don't think that many, I think in recent years, more and more people are starting to understand who she was and the example that she embodied.
Tell us about
up against, sure. I mean, up against titans like Kant and Hume, and just these people that
So like those are the names that you hear all the time: Immanuel Kant and David Hume.
Revolutionized Western thought.
Ooh, Peter Singer's a great, yeah, that is a great Steven Pinker, and who's the other one I'm thinking of? He's got a long curly hair. And it's like about here. He's like a contemporary guy. Oh, come on, you got to know who I'm talking about. Steven Pinker. He's another good guy for who's like alive and doing stuff. He was at the dissident dialogues thing. Oh, and guess what, guys? Guess what? I got an email back from Freedom Fest, and guess who got a press pass? Let's go. Doing real shit. Hell yeah. Dan Dennett. Yeah, I do like Dan Dennett. I don't like his take on free will. I think it's a cop-out. But yes, Steven Fingers, who I was thinking of. Yeah, dude, but yeah, so check out Freedom Fest. If there's somebody specific, they're asking me like, I get like 30-minute blocks with whoever. So take a look at the Freedom Fest speakers, and I will I'll interview them. Yeah. I mean, it's well, if you feel like it. That sounds very, I don't know, transy to me. Just saying.
That revolutionized Western thought. I understand that there's a lot of value to them, and I'm not trying to impugn their work. I'm just saying Simone Weil, to me personally.
Is he saying Simone Weil? Like V-A-Y? Or V-A-I? Or V-A? Or Simone Weil? Or Simone V? Simone. Okay, I think he's saying Simone Weil. What? Okay, I guess that's how you. That's how you spell it. 1909 in Paris, French mystic, social philosopher, and activist in the French Resistance during World War II, posthumously published works and had particular influence on French and English social thought. It's like post-Enlightenment. That's pretty late, right? Steven says, but the problem with free will is all in the definition of that word. What do you mean? I think I agree if you mean what I think you mean. But what do you show your work here? So nobody has really improved on Nietzsche's take on freedom of will in Beyond Good and Evil. So enlighten us. I don't have it in front of me. I don't have it in front of me. You know a lot more than anybody here. So educate us. Educate us.
Trying to impugn their work. I'm just saying Simone Weil, to me personally, is just such a breath of fresh air in contrast to the more Nietzschean perspective that people typically fall into in like modern Western culture, where it's about imposing your will upon things. Not that Nietzsche says that specifically, but just this is often the inference that people take from Nietzsche's philosophy. At least I did. It's like, it's okay to be strong. It's okay to get good at things, to try to become who you truly are.
Did we need to hear that? I think that we only need to hear that message in the face of all this fucking critical theory bullshit.
To just sort of accept things that have to be as they are and be positive about it. And just like Simone Weil is not about finding, you can interpret that through the internet and everything. It's like, I'm going to learn about the world. I'm going to learn about philosophy. I'm going to go out there looking for answers in all these books we've been talking about. I'm confused about how morality works. So I'm going to go out there and look for ethical answers to things. And Simone Weil was just so much more about, sure, answers, fine. But like when you go out looking for answers, you find them. And that's whether they're a false idol or whether they're the actual truth about the world.
When you go out looking, you're going to find something. Mercy said the Marquis de I don't know, it looks French, but maybe not. But that is Mercy's favorite. He's not so underrated in certain esoteric circles, though. Fair enough. Oh my God, you guys are throwing these fucking words at me. Like I already don't know how to read normal ass names. The error we make with free will is viewing it as causa sui, a self-originator. Okay, similar to how we misdefine gods. Fair enough. Okay. Yeah. Can you elaborate on the whatever the end part here? I don't know. Again, I've been a while since I studied this shit, but I do agree. I do agree.
Sure, and that's whether they're a false idol or whether they're the actual truth about the world. I mean, everybody sets out to find answers about the world, and they almost always settle on things that eventually down the road they find to be incomplete. And it's a trap to fall into. Like, in fact, like when she would famously teach her students about geometry, and she'd go out under this tree outside. Her students would talk about this after she was dead. Just like, and her lessons were not like, hey, prove this geometrical thing, or, you know, a squared plus b squared equals what. It's like she would just have them explore questions within geometry and try to find new lines of thought, try to find new interesting questions that they had never really thought about that causes them to look at geometry totally different. And this
very Socratic
translates into the most practical sense of just, if you want to be better at something,
do it.
One like David Goggins approach or like motivational person approach is like, just stay hard, like
embrace the suck. Or is that Jocko?
Impose your will on the thing. I want to read more. So what I'm going to do is force myself to read for 2 hours a day. And I'm going to do that for 3 months. And then by the end of that 3 months, man, I'm going to feel satisfied and proud of all the work that I put in, grinding and forcing myself to do it. And there's merit to that. Like, good on you. It's beautiful. But like, if you look at it through Simone Weil's work, which she values will for sure, but she just says there's a whole nother element to that has to do with openness and curiosity. It's like another thing about, you can grind and just force yourself to read 2 hours a day, or you can try to look at reading differently, conceptually. You can try to see it through a different light where reading becomes something that's more interesting to you. There's an openness to the experience. Instead of trying to impose yourself on reality all the time, be an antenna that sort of lets reality speak through you in a way. And it's
and this is kind of personally how I see the evolution, if you will, from the existentialist nihilistic perspective to a sorry, I'm just checking. I guys, I realized, I don't know if you know this, but I have a bearded dragon. He's over there. And now I'm gonna need to reach. I don't know why I did that, but I realized that like I hadn't seen his light on in weeks, and I only, because usually I don't see it on, because it's usually I set it on a timer, so it's usually goes on early, and then he has like a break in the day. Usually when I wake up and I come down and I'm making breakfast, taking the dog out, whatever. So it's usually off when I wake up, and then by the time I come down to do the show, it's usually off again because he's going to bed. And so, like, he was just like not moving and like being very like lethargic. And I'm like, oh my God, I don't remember the last time I seen that light on. I felt so bad. So I ordered some shit on Amazon. I'm hoping he's doing all right. Oh, poor Leoto. That's Leoto. Anyway, what were we saying? What did he just say? Oh, yeah. Like,
be an antenna that sort of lets reality speak through you in a way. And
so instead of trying to, like he was saying, force your will and I want the world to be this way, so I'm going to do this. There's definitely a time and a place for that. Absolutely, there's a time and a place for that. But as a way of living, just in general, it's a lot. It's going to be a lot easier on you to just kind of not necessarily go with the flow, but understand that there's an aspect of going with the flowness that you need. You can't control everything. And, you know, I mean, whether it comes out like the, what do they call it? The thing in AA, the prayer, grant me the thing to the things that I can change and can't change, the power to know the difference, whatever that shit is. Same kind of thing is that you have to know, okay, I have control over myself and how I react to things. I have control over certain things, but there's some things that I just cannot control. And I will never be able to control. And getting upset about that isn't going to change anything. So why bother? And I think that is a good good way to a good understanding of life. Zippy said, to force yourself to read does not mean you force yourself to read things you're not interested in. Fair. Yes, fair. Steven said, as any creature has agency does. What is that? Okay. We think we can originate our own actions, forgetting that everything we choose to do was caused in turn by previous factors we had no control over creating. We only have a choice as an emergent property of any creature with agency. As any creature that has agency does, but there are lower versus higher degrees of emergent agency different creatures and humans can possess. Young babies or old demented humans have little agency. There you go. The serenity prayer. Thank you. Oh my God. That was going to keep me up all goddamn night. But yeah, it comes down to the fact there's levels to this shit. There's levels to this shit. And this comes into play in so many different areas. And so as Stephen was talking earlier about, black and white thinking, apply that to the abortion argument. It's like, well, it's not a baby, so it's not a human. So it's not a person. So it's not it's like That's not a good way to think about it. Even if you are pro-choice, that is not a good argument. But me good, and I like good thing, and you like bad thing. Like, come on, indeed. There are levels to this shit. You know, the serenity prayer. It's God grant me the knowledge to know the difference between what I can control and can't control. No, the wisdom to understand what I can't. What I don't remember. But you know, you got it. You got it. Balance. Indeed. You get it.
And it's a whole skill that often gets ignored if people are focusing on just improving themselves and the sort of narcissistic pursuits that we often gravitate towards in modern consumer society. So that's what I would say. If anybody out there is looking for an underrated one, this is a woman that died at 34 years old. There's conversations about her death, but like the accepted theory is that she was dying of complications of tuberculosis in the hospital, and she wouldn't have died, but she was on a hunger strike in solidarity with the people that were going without food during the war at the time.
Beast!
I mean, this is a person that gave their life in the name of their philosophy. And in a world where...
All right, team effort now. Let's get the serenity prayer in the chat. Fuckmaster started off. Who's got it now? Who's got next?
One of these criticisms somebody could offer of philosophy is that it's too theoretical and there's not enough practical action and what the world needs.
I like this. Be extreme in nothing except balance. Dilly, chew that. No, you can't. No. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no. Somebody else has to keep going. You know how the game works. So first we're dilly into this because be extreme in nothing except balance. Very, very similar to my my motto of believe nothing except that anything is possible. No. You play the game or don't play the game. Jesus fucking Christ. You guys are no fun.
Criticism somebody could offer of philosophy is that it's too theoretical and there's not enough practical action, and what the world needs is action. There's some philosophers throughout history, like Socrates, that embody their philosophy. And I think Simone Weil is one of the most underrated ones. She had a great job at a university. She could have just sat there behind a desk and just
free will is real as you have agency to improve or die. Agency and will are not the same thing. This is conflation.
Great job at a university. She could have just sat there behind a desk and just read and wrote for the rest of her life, safe and sound. But she quit her job and joined a factory and worked with the auto workers. She bawled her eyes out the first 3 days she was on the job. She worked there for months just trying to understand the plight of what it is to be somebody actually in these conditions that she's just writing about from up in her ivory tower in the university. She embedded herself into a...
You know, there's a thing. I just want you to notice who are the people Just saying. Things don't go unnoticed.
She worked there for months just trying to understand the plight of what it is to be somebody actually in these conditions that she's just writing about from up in her ivory tower in the university. She embedded herself into a militia in the Spanish Civil War. I mean, the people were like trying to send her home, and she's like trying to stay. She's trying to finagle things so that she can stay. She's just an absolute inspiration to me. She's on the wall behind me, like it's backwards right there.
Oh,
and so, yeah, if you're looking for somebody that can inspire you more in that continental sense, I'm very indebted to her work.
So yeah, Steven says relative levels of agency are real. I have more agency than a fish. Again, can you how do you say this? I don't know. Cause sweet. I don't know how to say it. Can you like what's the phonetic thing? But yeah, I mean, well, neither will the fish. Yeah, the idea of being the initial cause of so it's just not a thing humans are capable of. We all have parents. None of us chose to be born. None of us chose our parents. None of us chose where we were born. There's so many factors that you did not choose that just because you have agency to do different things and that appears to you like free will, this notion that has been invented, it's a social construct. Just because you feel like it doesn't mean it's real. Something that we say to the transes all the time. Something you can understand when it comes to the transes, but it comes to your God and it comes to your free will. Like, huh? What? Huh? What? It's almost like it's the same fucking thing. And dogma. Glomtex said, I have the Serenity Prayer copied and ready to paste if the anticipation is getting to be too much. I'm not trying to be the spoiler here. Well, what you could have done was play along with everybody else and just put the next line in, but I guess only Glomtex, you're not on the level of Zippy and the Funk Master General. That's what you could have done. That's what you could have done. God damn it!
I'm very indebted to her work, personally.
Well, see, I wanted to ask you the mirror question of whether you think there's a sort of most overrated philosopher of all time, but then that feels like such a wonderful and inspirational place.
Steven, hit us with who's the most overrated. I feel like there's got to be an easy answer here. Okay, I'm not looking at the chat. So you guys, most overrated. Is it fair to say Ibrahim Kendi? That's a joke. He's not a philosopher. Guys, you really don't get that we were trying, like, you've never played the game where one person says a line of the story, and then the next person says a line of the story, and the next person makes up a line of the story. You didn't even have to make anything up. It was just putting one line and then the next line, and Jesus fucking Christ. It's really fun and cool when you have to explain it, right?
Is to leave things off. But I suppose I've asked it now. I don't know if you have any ideas on the mirror question.
I don't want to.
So Zippy says, I'm inferring will as choices you make and free as the freedom to choose. Am I missing something? Yes. The choices you make are your agency. The reason why you make those choices is the will.
Be negative about anything. I'm going to use.
I wanted to go here, but I felt like that was too easy. I feel like that's too easy, but I think you might be right. Marx is a good answer too. Marx is a good answer. I don't know who that is, but sure. I like Ayn Rand, but I was gonna say I don't necessarily consider her a philosopher. I think she has a good philosophy, but she's more of a political person. You know what I mean. John Danaher is the most overlaid. Shout out if you get it. Ooh, the most misquoted philosopher. That's gotta be Socrates, just based on the fact. Is he a very quoted? Yeah. Like it's gotta be an Aristotle play too. So Stephen asked if I'm a libertarian in ideology. So after watching the Dave Smith and Andrew Wilson debate, even though I realized that Dave did not really deliver, he didn't really come to play, it made me realize that what was the fucking, oh no, I lost it. Libertarian is to politics. I just said it yesterday. Fuck. Does anybody remember what I said? No. Oh, yeah. I got it. Okay. So I was saying that libertarianism is to politics what atheism is to religion. So yes, I very much have a lot of libertarian-minded ideas, but I don't think... Yep. But I don't think that libertarianism, the capital L libertarianism, is a good enough thing to be its own political philosophy. That, hey, we're a libertarian country, and that's what we do. In the same way, atheism is not a philosophy. It's not a thing to live your life by. It's just a position. And so I think libertarianism, is a little bit more than that, but it's not enough. It's not enough. And so, yes, I definitely consider myself very libertarian, lowercase l. But I don't think that libertarianism can stand on its own, if that makes sense. But Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Aleister Crowley, also often misquoted. Zibby said your agency is limited by your existence, but that has little bearing on how you implement your will. So free will is a rhetorical catch-22. Yup. There you go. There you go. Oh Jesus, happen to be So am I. More from the philosophical naturalist. Okay. How do you find philosophical naturalist? That's fair. I want to hear a definition on that.
On place to rated philosopher all time, but then that feels like such a wonderful and inspirational place to leave things off. But I suppose I've asked it now. I don't know if you have any ideas on the mirror question.
I don't want to be negative about anything. I'm going to use what little time I have on a public platform like this to just be positive. I'd say Descartes. Short answer. Longer answer, you'll have to ask me for.
How dare you?
Ah! How dare you?
How dare
Or
you?
maybe I'll do an episode on it.
Yeah, for sure. For what it's worth, I think maybe I've said in the past that it might be David Hume for various reasons. That might just be the contrarian in me, because so many people in the sort of atheist online space really like David Hume and look up to David Hume. So maybe it's just me trying to be a contrarian, but I really do think that he seems to just contradict himself in a few areas. That there's this amazing passage where
we'll get to that, but okay. So naturalism rejects supernatural explanations. I think we. I mean, we're not there yet. We're not there yet. Glomtech, I'm being patient, but it's trying. It's trying me. What the fuck does supernatural mean? No, I know what you mean by super. Not you, but the general you. I know what y'all mean by supernatural. But explain to me how something can exist and not be natural. Either it exists, meaning it's natural, or it doesn't exist, in which case it doesn't exist. Explain to me how something could be such a thing that is called supernatural. Mercy Chuck said all of the theosophists are misquoted a lot, actually. By name, though? I couldn't tell. I mean, unless I'm not familiar with this categorization, I couldn't name you one theosophist. I might not be familiar with the categorization, though. But again, just on that, this is why I want to explore this. There's a whole world of this stuff, and I haven't touched it in years. And just like with the political stuff, I want to not only introduce this stuff to you as as somebody who has some understanding of what's going on, but it's also something we're learning together. I mean, Steven and Mercy Choke know what the fuck they're talking about, but I mean, like, the rest of us are dumbass motherfuckers, And that's why I asked if this is like too dense, or like what are you guys feeling about this? Because there's a whole world of this stuff, and we can all be on the same team. It doesn't need to be left versus right or religion versus atheist. It could just be thoughts. So I would love to go further down this road with you guys, but I'm scared. I think I don't know. I feel like y'all just want, like, look at the dumb liberals. I don't know. Zippy says, I'm agnostic as well. I try to quantify God or the divine as physics. He says, as far as I've gotten, chasing rabbits down the abyss for their weeds. I'm with you. Hence the rejection of that approach to explain anything. Yep. What about quantum physics? Supernatural means best show ever. Really? Isn't that like a CW show? I thought CW shows were like, I don't know. We said supernatural equals dark science. Dark equals unknown. So that would just be unknown. So, like, whether whether or not my phone is resting on the right corner or the left corner, that's supernatural because it's unknown.
Stupid.
Sounds kind of dumb, doesn't it? I said shit. Me too. Fuck the Pope. Fuck the entire Catholic religious system. I'm not going down that road. I'm gonna get myself angry. All right, guys. Let's okay. So Blavatsky, Besant, Ledbetter, Bill Crowley, Hitler. Okay. Parsons. What's Parsons' first name? Parsons. I recognize the name, but again, this is what I'm saying. Like, I would love to be able to, do deep dives with you guys. Oh no. Guantek said, parts of quantum physics break normal physics, so wouldn't it be considered supernatural? Nope. It would just be natural. So what normal physics are just how physics work in those conditions. The quantum physics that work outside of that are just quantum physics. Did somebody engineer it, or did it just happen that way? Then it's natural. Do we count them? Do we count them as philosophers? They definitely had philosophy. They definitely had thoughts, culture, culture driving thoughts. But I don't know if I would necessarily call them philosophers. I mean, anybody who has a thought can. If we're we're kind of widening the scope there. But fair enough. Zippy said, but you have a phone and the phone is real and its general location. Okay, but that's not what I asked. The side it is laying on right now. You know that I have a pop socket. So it's either like that or it's like that when I put it down. Which side is it? You said supernatural equals dark science and dark equals unknown. So is the side, the position of my phone, is that supernatural? Because that fits this definition. Of course not. So that is not a good definition. Jack Parsons. Okay. I don't think I'm familiar. Oh, shout out to the ancestors. Theodore Roos. Shout out. All right, let's finish this up. Guys, we are $20 away. $20 away. If each of you gives $2, we are good. If each of you gives $2, we are good. Get Morty a jar of peanut butter. He'll love it for the next 2 days.
It's me trying to be a contrarian, but I really do think that he seems to just contradict himself in a few areas. There's this amazing passage where Hume thinks that all of our knowledge ultimately comes from empiricism. So everything that you could possibly know ultimately comes from some kind of, you see it, you touch it, you hear it.
Okay, so when you put empiricism, I would use empiricism differently. I don't know that it's necessary. Like, is that? Let's get a dictionary definition, because I don't necessarily think that. What was it? I don't remember what the word we're looking at. What did he say?
Ultimately comes from some kind of, you see it, you touch it, you hear it, which ultimately.
Empiricism. Because that just says to me like replicable. Empiricism. The theory that all knowledge is derived from sense experience. Well, I was wrong. All right. Okay.
Just me trying to contradict him. So Hume thinks that all of our knowledge ultimately comes from empiricism. So everything that you could possibly know ultimately comes from some kind of, you see it, you touch it, you hear it. That's the way the information comes into your head. So there's no idea that you can have that doesn't have a corresponding, what he calls impression. And an impression is something that you see. It's like the image of the chair or the microphone on your eyes. That's the impression. And the idea is what's in your head. And so he says, so there is no idea that you have in your head that doesn't have a corresponding impression.
So as Stephen just said, there are many unknowns in science, even more in quantum physics. Shouldn't lead anyone to accepting speculative ideas as anything other than speculative. And so when you bring up dark matter, you first have to know what dark matter is. So you can't say dark matter is this or that, because dark matter is a placeholder. Dark matter, dark energy, these are terms that we use for shit that we don't understand. You may as well say X. You may as well say A. It's exactly the same as a variable in the way that we were talking about A equals B, B equals C, A equals C. Dark matter is just a cosmic A, or a cosmic B, or a cosmic C, or a cosmic XYZ, or whatever it is. That's all. So it is absolutely natural. We just don't understand what the fuck it is. We know it's there. Therefore, it is natural. Funkmaster General says supernatural would be if your phone was randomly floating in the air. Even then, there would be some natural. There would be again. I don't believe that could happen without some physical anomaly. And so, fine, if it were to just float up in the air. Now, I would not have an explanation for that, but I still wouldn't be like, oh, it must be something supernatural. No, there's clearly a reason why the phone is floating in the air. I may not understand the reason. That doesn't mean there is no reason. And when I say reason, I don't mean purpose. I mean a process by which it is happening. And so just because I can't explain how I'm just sitting in front of this little thingy and you can see my face, I can't explain to you the process of how that works. That doesn't make it supernatural. And even if nobody understood how it worked, it would just be, oh, it just works. So again, explain how something can be in existence in the natural world and also not be part of that natural world. If it is part of the natural world, it is nature. There's no need for the super. It's just natural. The same way that, my hair naturally grows. Whatever it is happens naturally, unless you are suggesting that there is a conscious agent behind it. So then, even then, I would say that if a God exists, that a God is part of nature. Either way you cut it, there's no space for the notion, the idea of supernatural. So he said, do you know the scientific meaning of dark energy, dark matter? Things can barely register yeah. So back to Jack Parsons of the JPL, the Jet Propulsion Laboratories, aka the Jack Parsons Laboratories, first lab of America in its kind. There you go, Jack Parsons. Love to see it. American exceptionalism. CNN says empiricism is contrasted with rationalism in the history of philosophy. We tend to underrate the value of empiricism in daily life and overestimate our rational abilities in lieu of evidence. But there should be a balance. Indeed. Supernatural is a placeholder for what? For what? What could possibly be? It's just a placeholder for that which is natural. Just like dark is a placeholder for that which is natural. Context. And the only thing that could be supernatural is something we couldn't even theorize or comprehend. Maybe I'm just being dense. No, it's just like the concept itself. The concept itself. If something, how could something exist and not be part of nature? That's what nature is. That which exists. Like Pluto out in the far solar system. That is a natural thing. Nobody did that. It just happened naturally. Lightning. Nobody's throwing lightning. It just happens by the process of nature. So anything else, it has to be a different mechanism that is not natural. And if it's not natural, then it doesn't exist. And so again, you could say a dark is a placeholder. Super is not. People use supernatural to mean outside of the natural universe. Dark is a placeholder and be like, it's this shit. It works, but we don't know what it is. So you can't put those in the same category. Mercy Choke says supernatural is a phenomenon without a discernible cause or origin, pretty much. So something that didn't happen. Otherwise, this is the argument from personal incredulity. Just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it doesn't have a cause or origin. Again, just because you don't understand something doesn't mean that it doesn't have a cause or origin.
So there is no idea that you have in your head that doesn't have a corresponding impression. It doesn't exist because all ideas come from empirical impressions. And then he himself brings up a counterexample, the famous missing shade of blue, where he says, but you could imagine in your head. Well, imagine somebody who's seen every single shade of blue except for one little bit. And so they can imagine in their head the entire part of the rainbow that is the different shades of blue with a tiny slither missing. Like, could they imagine the shade of blue that fills in that gap without having ever actually seen it?
Let's go to a poll on that one. I'm coming, Morty. What? You see him right here. You see him right here, right? Look at his, you can see his nose. I'm going to turn around and he's going to jump in the chair. And of course, the one time I call it out, he's not going to do it. I knew it! I knew it! God damn it! Morty, I love you, but I hate you. I love you, but I hate you. Oh my God. All right. So could he imagine that blue? Oh man. In different years, that would have meant a different thing in my life. We'll have him explain it again. We'll come back to some comments.
Part of the rainbow that is the different shades of blue with a tiny slither missing. Like, could they imagine the shade of blue that fills in that gap without having ever actually seen it? And Hume goes,
all right, so that is the question. Excuse me. Mercy said Zippy, aka shit only the government and generational sorcerers really know about or can wield. That's still not supernatural. That's still natural. There's a power that all men wield that cannot be done by women. That doesn't make it supernatural. It's very natural. Guantex, so I'm just saying that there's a lot that we can't measure or comprehend. So whether it is natural is based on us being able to witness it or not. No. Why is it based off us being able to witness? What does our witness have to do with it or not? So are you telling me that, yeah, so if a tree falls in the forest and you don't see it, does that mean the tree didn't fall? That's what you're saying. If we are not able to witness it, then it's supernatural. So a tree falling in the woods is a supernatural experience. I don't think so, bro. We're at 50-50. We're at 50-50. Can he imagine that blue? We only got 2 votes. Come on. There's 8 people here. Hit the goddamn poll. You might be in ads, but we'll keep that up. Zippy said, so your science religion can use dark as a placeholder, but super cannot be used in the same way. Correct. Correct. Because dark refers to a specific thing. The same way in algebra, A can be used as a placeholder, but fucking, I don't know. You can't go outside of math. Like, you can't be Terrence Howard and be like, actually, 1 times 1 equals 2. What is super being? What is being held? What place is being held by super? It can be. It's just not. That's not how people use it. That's how it should be used. Oh, just something that we don't understand. But no, people use supernatural as if it's something that we will never be able to understand. That's the difference. Just because you do not understand it today doesn't mean that no human ever will experience it. That is what people talk about when they refer to things as supernatural. And that just doesn't exist. That doesn't exist. There might be things that we will never understand. That does not make it supernatural. Because if it happens, it's natural. That is what natural means. Of nature. So unless it is of something other than nature, it is natural. That's how words work. Fair. Mercy Choke said, right, Guamtech. He's taking our range of perception and comprehension being complete as a given. Not if you're talking about me, because as I said, just because we don't understand something, which we don't, many things, that doesn't mean that they are supernatural outside of nature or any of those things. So, incorrect. Steven says, when we witness particles, they decohere from being wave potentials. I know that seems supernatural, but it ain't. It's nature.
Blue that fills in that
gap. Nobody else is going to hit the poll. Come on. It's 2 people and we're at 50-50. We are stopping here. One of you motherfuckers hit the goddamn poll. You think I'm joking? We're going to sit here until somebody ends the tie. It's not hard. You just click yes or no. I used to ask you guys, oh, put a 1 in the chat. And you never do that. No, I'm just asking you to click a button. All right. I'll go on TikTok. I don't give a shit. Let me know whenever you guys are ready.
Hey, you're just mad because I'll be able to do something with my fucking guitar in hands that you'll never be able to achieve in your entire life, kid. So yeah, you're gay.
Oh, I mean, look, that was, as I said, was a cheap, a cheap fake. That was definitely a cheap fake. It was. This was widely fact-checked. That video was widely fact-checked, including by conservative media, on what happened, what occurred. The president walked.
Yeah, no big deal.
But so if he expressed to Brian here why he would rather talk to a tree than a woman, Brian would understand. I doubt you'd talk over him or say that's not a good enough answer. He expressed those feelings to you. You talked over him. You said it wasn't a good enough answer. But you're also saying you responded that way, and nobody would want to share their feelings with that. That's just objectively true. You responded that way, and you're also blaming men for not wanting to share their feelings with. Correct me if I'm wrong, but all they said is they would rather talk to a tree. And I was just saying, you're actually interrupting me.
I'm so glad I'm not getting donated $200. Big stresses that I can only solve must be internalized and dealt with. Taking the stress and worry from a spouse who looks up to me for guidance and leadership. I'm talking to a fucking tree 100%.
Yeah, that's okay. Thank you for the TTS, man. Also, Killer Serial Sorry, I was a little tilted earlier on if you're still watching.
Hey, Veronica, do you have a second? Yeah. I wanted to present you with the opportunity to.
You guys are wild. Why are you just watching me on TikTok instead of just hitting the thing so we can get back to the show? I don't get it. I don't get it. But do you?
So what we are saying that is if a person who is homeless, let's say, and they are on a corner with a sign, if they make a TikTok account and they live stream themselves holding a sign.
Hey, there we go. There we go. Finally, somebody said no. Okay, so imagine that. Let's see what they say.
With a tiny slither missing. Like, could they imagine the shade of blue that fills in that gap without having ever actually seen it? And Hume goes, well, I suppose that they could have done. Now, this seems to be a direct contradiction to what he said a moment ago, that every idea that you have must have a corresponding impression. And you know what he says? Well, this is such a minuscule counterexample that it's sort of, it doesn't really affect the general point. Even though 5 minutes ago he says, of the idea that all ideas have corresponding impressions, he says, I know of no way to prove this, except by the failure of anybody to provide counterexample. If someone could show a single counterexample, it would undermine this, but I will infer from their silence, the viability of my theory or something like that.
I should have done that. I should have done that with a goddamn poem. Interesting. And this is what it allows you, philosophy in general. All right, I'll get that in a second. That is the beauty of being able to bring your mind outside of the very narrow scope of what you think and what you're used to is just thinking in normal life, and you get to widen that, and that sticks with you. That's the beautiful thing to me. Steven says you can imagine that blue is more pink than yellow or more orange than purple.
What?
That's a whole other stream. Okay, so wait, you can imagine that blue is more pink than yellow. Nope. Prove me wrong. Prove me wrong here. I disagree. Let's just take this one. You can imagine that blue is more pink than yellow. Let's take that because I disagree with this. But I trust you to prove me wrong. Context said every invention started in someone's imagination. It took a lot of hard work to implement. Jesus Christ, implement, but that's where we are. Oh my goodness! Let's shout out our boy Zippy the Strange for yet another Rumble rant. My goodness, y'all two holding this whole stream up on your back. Now we got 36 guys. That's $14. We are $14 away from my puppy being so goddamn happy. You will not even understand. Thank you. Very, very much, sir. Very, very much appreciated. Mercy Choke said maybe we are disagreeing on the definition of natural, not the concept of supernatural, possibly. The super part, describing phenomena that can't be defined as naturally occurring, yet being the operative. The super part of describing the phenomena that can't be defined as naturally occurring, yet being the operative word.
What?
Huh? I'm going to be charitable and understand that you mean that can't be defined yet as naturally occurring. So, I mean, I'm going to, same as Dan Dennett, I think that's a cop-out. So anything I don't understand is supernatural. Yeah, that's gay as fuck. That's gay. Can't you imagine anything? Yeah, I mean, theoretically, but that specifically, I might imagine when you say, imagine blue is more pink. I can imagine anything, but I don't know what it is that you mean by more pink than yellow. So I theoretically could imagine that, but I don't know what it is. It's the same thing as you can imagine Klombadrov, right? You can imagine anything. Okay, but you have to know what Klombadrov is in order to imagine it. So you need to be able to explain what being more pink than yellow means. Then perhaps I'd be able to imagine it. Mercy Choke said, if you could put a cell phone in a time machine and send it back to the Dark Ages, they would probably think it's supernatural. Yes, and they'd be wrong, right? Yeah, they'd be wrong because it's not supernatural because somebody made it. And so this is why this is a cop-out. It's not supernatural. It is very natural, as in humans that were born through nature made it with stuff that exists in nature. That is the least supernatural thing I could ever think of. This is the opposite of the watchmaker argument.
Mind this, but I will infer from their silence. It doesn't really affect the general point. Even though 5 minutes ago he says, of the idea that all ideas have corresponding impressions, he says, I know of no way to prove this except by the failure of anybody to provide a counterexample. If someone could show a single counterexample, it would undermine this, but I will infer.
Oh my goodness. Yo, my boy said, fuck all of y'all. Shout out to the Morty Mort. Morty, you ready for this? You don't even know. Look what I got. Dun, 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 woo! Shout out. Oh, look at it. Oh, God. Oh, he loves it. Oh, yeah. Oh. Good job. There we go. Thank you. And of course, this man is so very, very, very much appreciating this. Thank you so much. Everybody just put FMG in the chat. Thank you so much, sir.
Counterexample. If someone could show a single counterexample, it would undermine this, but I will infer from their silence, the viability of my theory or something like that. Then he himself brings up a counterexample, accepts that it is a counterexample, and then says, oh, but it's such a small one that it shouldn't affect the general point. After reading that, I think I found it difficult to ever revisit David Hume without remembering that he'd done that. So for me, maybe that's a bit unfair to pick up on that one thing.
He's still got that, too. I'm gonna give him.
You should do a video on it and see what people say that are fans of Hume.
I might do that. I've been thinking about doing it for a while, actually. Can I ask a quick question on the way out here?
No.
Do you find it to be a benefit to do philosophy content for a living, where you cast a global net, and so you just have an intrinsic advantage to improving at philosophy better than other people around you? Because when you post something on the internet, like your interpretation of Hume there, if there's somebody that's a big fan of Hume, they're going to come back at you in the comment section and give you a counter argument as they see it. Do you? As
we saw with the Gen Xers in that video from a fucking month ago, still getting comments.
Like, are you grateful for that? Or as I am, I feel super grateful for that.
Endlessly grateful on so many different levels, not just the fact that.
Should I be grateful for all these fucking annoying comments? It's too much. It's too much too soon. Too much too soon. Okay. I wasn't ready for a 50,000 view video yet. All right. In stages.
I'll have immediate access to counterexamples within minutes of posting something, but also the fact that that's something I can do for a job. It's a marvel, and I never want to take it for granted. the flip side of that, of course, is that although if
Before he goes to that, I do have to, obviously share my own appreciation for the same thing that, again, I know that you guys could be doing anything. And especially those of you who are here almost every stream, especially those of you who are opening your wallets, regardless of the amount. That means so much to me. And I could never, ever, ever, ever express to you how much it actually does mean to me. I wish I could. I'm not good enough with words, and you guys don't like when I get all mushy. So I just want to say again, thank you so much to the both of you. I really, really, really do appreciate it. Stephen Colbert Cheese, and I'm grateful you played this fine philosophy discussion, the Indian Jesus. Nice happening by your channel. Well, I am glad you came by because you definitely punched this shit up. I did not cut that. Woo! All right. Yummy. Okay, Mercy's still trying. What supernatural is just the word they use to describe said phenomena. But I get what you're saying, and I'm inclined to somewhat agree. But I believe in spiritual phenomena that science can't explain or describe. Not in full anyway. I completely agree. That is why we need to get away from thinking dogmatically that we have all the nature stuff in place and then anything there is supernatural. No, maybe it's just there's a whole lot of natural that we don't understand. That's where I'm coming from. Oh my goodness. Again. Did you ready here? Yeah, he read the same one. Oh my goodness. He's not going to be bothered, but I am going to leave it for him. I'm going to leave that right here for him. You're going to find it eventually with the Rumble rant. Thank you. Instead of, but I could be, did you say something for us? So words change over time. So I'm not hard set to say supernatural is impossible. It is, but it goes on to say, but I could be conflating the fact, the theme and the connotation of supernatural. Oh, I could be conflating the fact. Once I don't know, so it could be conflating supernatural, but the connotation of supernatural never changes. But once we figure out something that was once supernatural, it becomes science. That sounds like reasonable logic. And so, exactly. So at no point was it supernatural. It was always natural. We just didn't understand it. And so if you're using it in that way, I feel like that's just, this is kind of what Mercy was saying. I feel like that's imprecise. And why use language in an imprecise way when you have a more precise way to use it? That's just my personal humble opinion from just one short Indian dude with beautiful hair. Lontek said both these guys fought hard to prove their parents wrong. When they said, you're going to school for philosophy? What are you going to do? Open a philosophy store? Yup. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like he was probably, he seems like the type that was like, nerdy into shit from being a little kid. Again, I don't think he's 30 yet. So like I've been following for over 10 years. So he's definitely, they knew he was going to be like on this. Okay. Paranatural. I don't like it, but I'm not mad at it. I don't think I would use it. But it definitely is a lot better for me. Just again, talking my own personal opinion. I like paranatural a lot better than supernatural because then at least it raises a conversation of like, okay, well, what do you mean by that? And doesn't skip over the conflation of like, okay, well, I just mean something that we don't yet understand. Not something that is so crazy that it cannot be a natural phenomenon. It's just paranatural. I like that. And of course, supernatural is a bad word. Not a bad word, but is bad at being a word. Worse than God. Worse than God. God can at least exist. God at least has the possibility of existing. Supernaturality does not. Paranaturality, sure. No supernatural. I like that compromise, guys. I like it. All right, let's finish this up and head to the after party where Morty will still be chomping down on all that peanut butter. Guys, you made him so happy. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes, good job. Let's dilly that. Oh, wait. Hold on. Wait. I gotta make my drink. Give Mercy proper respect. proper respect in the building. Gotta keep it, gotta keep it watered down. There was one time where I wasn't watering it down. And again, if they approach me and pay me, then you'll know what I'm drinking. If you know, then you know. But if you don't know, then get somebody trying to figure it out and pay me, and then you'll know. But one time I had just a little bit too much. Oh, excuse me. It's a mercy choke. Cheers. Yeah, it was a little much. Like, I wasn't like you probably couldn't tell if you watched that stream. I don't remember. I wish I had remember which one it was. But anyway, there was a stream where I wasn't out of control. You probably wouldn't be able to tell, but I was like, trying to hold on to everything. And this was before I was, there was like 5 different things. So even just the regular StreamYard thing and the video and the YouTube chat, I was like, oh my God. So I was like, all right, let me water this down. And that way we get fun, but we are good. So I can change this back. Thank you again to Zippy the Strange. And of course, the Funk Master General. Look at him. He's like, yeah, I know you've given me food. I don't give a shit. Look what I got. Look what I got. You guys did that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right, let's finish this up.
Just take it for granted. The flip side of that, of course, is that although if I put out an interpretation of Hume and then someone in the comments immediately says, oh, well, this is wrong for this reason. And I read that comment and I go, oh, man, I hadn't thought about that. That's brilliant. Like, how lucky it is that I can immediately have that response. The problem is that the video I've put out that I've now seen this response to is now going to be seen by thousands of people. And maybe I now think that it's wrong. And so I don't know, do I take it down? Do I add an addendum? Do I like respond to it myself? I don't know. There's a sort of responsibility that comes with it. So I have to always be very careful to say, like, that's my understanding of David Hume, but like, go and read the source material yourself. Go and look at what other people have to say. Don't take my word for it. So it comes with, as long as you sort of give that caveat, I think, yeah, I could never not be grateful for it. So, because sometimes you forget, you do it for so many years, you forget how abnormal it is. And when I've been preparing for podcasts, sometimes I'll have friends over and we'll sit and we'll be hanging out, and I'll be listening to this person's previous podcast, or I'll like be flipping through their book or something, and they'll say, all right, see you later, man. I got to go. I've got work tomorrow. And I'm like, okay, I'm just going to sit here and read this book. And one of my friends said to me the other day, sort of on the way out, like, do you know, it's amazing that you just get to do this, right? Like here we are just like sat listening to, Sam Harris or Jordan Peterson on a podcast because you're.
And here we are, just listening to Philosophize This and Cosmic Skeptic talk about shit that's way over my head. And we got Stephen Colbert in here teaching me a whole bunch of shit. Maybe you guys are learning too. And I think this is beautiful. I think this is beautiful. The Funk Master General says, we just want Morty to spare us in the end. Well, you're spared. You're spared. You're all spared. Everybody's spared. Yeah. Oprah joke.
You're preparing to speak with this person. It's like, this is just what you do. You just listen and read, and then you get to go and ask people, sometimes the people who are sort of originating these ideas, about those ideas.
And that's exactly what I did with Dissident Dialogues. That's exactly what I'm going to do with Freedom Fest. And guys, by the end of this year, by the end of this year, y'all collectively will be like, oh shit, I was on the Indian Jesus train before he blew up. Like I said, we are way closer to the beginning of this journey than the end. And speaking of which, I did just join the after party. So if you are a member and you want to join, make sure you show up. If nobody's there, I'm going to think you don't like me.
Sometimes the people who are sort of originating these ideas, about those ideas, the day that I stopped being grateful for that, I think something has gone terribly, terribly wrong.
Yep.
I saw this interview that you did with your friend Chris Williamson, and he said something about you that I think is accurate. He said,
you mean the panels? So they definitely have, there's one with Constantine from Trigonometry, and I think it's Brianna Wu. No, not Brianna Wu. I forget her name. It's a black girl with braids. They had a Israel debate, and then the conversation with Richard Dawkins and Ayaan Hirsi Ali about her becoming Christian. I'm saving that because we did atheist shit yesterday. We're doing philosophy stuff today, so we're gonna do some more we're doing some more politics. And then, oh, I cannot wait. I cannot wait to break this down. I was drunk as fuck because this was the last thing of the entire convention. So it was this, and then I was like, all right, let's go upstairs and get wasted. Yeah. Yeah, those two. So right there, that's the ones that they have out. I'm sure there'll be more to come, but you know, I mean, other than the one that Alex O'Connor was with in the very beginning, they were cool. But this is why, you know, if you'd seen my my stream that I did for my phone there, I was like, yep, this is why we get VIP. I'm not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere without VIP. It's not worth it to spend $300 to go and watch YouTube videos 2 months early. Not doing that. Now, it's not that I don't want to see these conversations. It's not that but that's not what I'm trying to do in this space. What I'm trying to do in this space with these people is network with them. And in order to do that, you have to be in the right place. The reason that Ian Hartman is wrong, can I go all the way back to the top? That's going to take too long. All right. The reason that Ian Hartman is wrong about the fact that Alex is pro-trans and, you know, needs to be up my ass about it. The reason is because he thinks that he's seen all of Alex's content, and therefore he knows him better than the question that I asked him from my mouth to his ears, and then the answer came from his face into my ears. Chronically online. So I'm going to meet these people in real life, and we're going to bring them back to the channel. And that's all. Well, you asking where this money goes. You asking where this money goes. It's going to that. It's going to that. It's going to make this shit as fire as it can be. Just so you know, let's bring it home.
With your friend Chris Williamson, and he said something about you that I think is accurate. He said, your value in the marketplace has not been priced yet. It's a bit of an overly commodified way of saying it, but that's his whole thing.
I like that. As a you know, a laissez-faire capitalist, I like that.
As a businessman.
That's very Chris.
I put it in different terms, but he said if I could invest in somebody like a stock, I would invest in you. And
can't we just agree that biological sex characteristics and mental genders are different things? No, of course they're the same thing. Nah. Well, actually, I mean, wait, no, they are the same thing. What do you mean? Wait, is it different? What? Can't we just agree that biological sex characteristics and mental gender ones are two? Okay, it's two different things. Okay, yeah, no, they're the same thing. They're the same thing. Your gender is your sex. Sorry. End of story.
I put it in different terms, but he said if I could invest in somebody like a stock, I would invest in you. And I agree. I think that you have a great disposition, a great vibe, great skills to be able to just take this to, I don't think it's a coincidence you're doing so well on all these interviews with people that are absolute legit philosophers that will be remembered in the history books for our time. And perhaps you are somebody else that will be remembered in the history books. And I just want to thank you for having me. And you've been doing such good work the last year and a half, man.
What
so
is the rest
keep it up. I'm one vote for you to keep up what you're doing.
Thanks, Stephen. I mean, that means the world.
Still 3
very
minutes.
kind of you to say. And yeah, I mean, that is the reason I do all of this, for pride and to be remembered after I die. I make lots of money while I'm doing it. So that's good news.
All right. I think we got to the end there. Look at this motherfucker. Oh my God. He is so happy, guys. Look what you did. You did it. You did that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I don't have kids. I just have him. He's going to be 15 next month. And that's, I don't know. Thank you so very much. But yeah, Stephen, maybe that's a debate that we need to have if you're on that side of the issue. But I personally believe there are two genders that are inextricably connected to your sex. And I mean, you could say that you change that, and I believe that you should be able to change that if you want to. But in reality, there it is. Zippy, he took your thing there. Sounds like we disagree. Yeah, let's. I'm down. Let me drop the link to the Discord in case anybody hasn't already joined. Again, it is free to join. It is absolutely free to join. There are free channels, the free chat we are in all the time. There's the current events channel, the server suggestions, content suggestions, all that good stuff. And we do really use the free chat a lot. But if you want the good stuff, the disciple chat, we got the not safe for work channel, all our memes and selfies and mid journey if you have it, and of course our voice channels for not only after parties but our movie nights as well. Starts at just $2.99 a month, motherfuckers. Join that shit. What are we saying here? There are even less than 1.7% who are physically indeterminate sex. Right, so that sounds like an exception to the rule. Sounds like sex and gender are tied and are bimodal. More like less than 10% have gender that conflicts with their physical sex. Because this doesn't, I'm not arguing with these stats. That just means that less than 10, so gender is bimodal. So you have male and you have female, or you have man and you have woman, and they're bimodal. So there's an overlap. You have intersex people, you have people who are crazy and think that they have genders for you. They're in that spot. And just like supernatural, just because they think they are the opposite gender doesn't mean they are the opposite gender. They just think that. And again, I'm more liberal than I ever wanted to appear on this fucking platform. I am not only do I not care that, obviously if you're gay, but not only do I not care if you want to change your gender expression, I am actively in favor of you being able to change your gender identity. What that does not mean is that you are changing your gender. That's just changing your clothes and your makeup and maybe chopping up your face a little bit and hopefully not your genitals. Yeah, I got that. Having various gender characteristics doesn't mean anyone crazy. Again, disagreed. I really, did you join the Discord, bro? Join the Discord. I really would love to, I would do a whole show with you on this. Yeah, Matt Walsh says the third gender is supernatural. There you go. But he also believes in God, so.
Loser!
Just kidding. No point in going nuts just because life is complicated. I agree. But I think that means different things to us. So again, that's a whole other conversation. And again, I'm very, very, very open to discussing this with you. Clearly, you are more well-read on at least some areas than I am. But I'm still very much open to it. So either, again, the link to the Discord is right there. It is free to join. You can send me a DM. Or if you prefer, send me an email at theindianjesusofficial@gmail.com. Let's set it up. Guys, I want to thank you so very much. Look at all of these chats. Every one of Zippy's chats here is tied to a Rumble rant. And we got our boy the Funk Master General. Look at all of this. He's carrying it around in his mouth. He's having a ball. Look at all of this. Thank you so very, very, very much. I know, again, you guys could be doing anything, but you spent this time with me, and some of you opened your wallets, and that means the world to me. So thank you so very, very much. Those of you who are in the Discord, I will see you over there, whether you are a member or not. And if you are a member, I'm going to see you in the after party. Let's do it. Thank you so very, 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 very much for hanging out. Once again, he's under there enjoying his peanut butter. That is Morty, and I have been your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, and whenever I feel like it. I've been going live like every single day, so hit that subscribe, ring the bell. I will see you guys next time. Until then, we are out of here. Peace.